Can't blame him at all.
No.
You know, if a vicar was trailing around after my wife, I'd give him a good kicking as well.
Yeah, well, you'd have to step in, wouldn't you?
I'd go and smash it in the face with a communion wine bottle or something like that.
Diverting late-night football conversation for prostitutes.
How dare you!
Chronic back pain sufferers.
Done the old back again.
And security guards who haven't quite nodded off yet. Wake up!
The Michaels, Graham and Parry on Talk Sport. For when two mics are better than one.
You worry too much about the time.
Yeah, no, I worry about it. You don't care, do you?
Not really.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say that it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And I have to say, I've got this image now of Gareth Bale entering the arena.
Yes.
Champions League final.
In Cardiff.
Cardiff. Hello, boyo, in his hometown, okay.
Yes. Will Derek from Pencoed be there?
Will the bog cleaner be there, cleaning the bogs in the millennium? Will you get the contract for the bog cleaning, Derek? Give us a call. And what I'm saying is that being a bit of a student of Welsh history, because I was born just over the border in Chester.
Were you?
Yeah. I can tell you that will be the greatest moment in the history of Wales since Offa built his dyke.
What about when the George and the Dragon scenario was going on?
Oh,
wasn't there a bit of slaying going on when the Welsh were trying to slay George and the Dragon and all that? Wasn't that
no, nothing to do with it.
Well, that was Offa's dyke was built to keep George and the Dragon out, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. No, Offa's dyke was built to keep the barbarians in. Not keep anybody out.
So what, the English built Offa's dyke?
Yeah, of course they did, yeah.
But that was...
Offa
was George and the Dragon, wasn't it?
Offa was actually an indeterminate nationalist.
Really?
He came from what we call the borders.
Offa with his head?
Yeah, sort of Hereford, Shrewsbury, round there, all that kind of place.
Is it Shrewsbury or Shrewsbury?
It's Shrewsbury.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm certain.
Are you sure?
I played at Shrewsbury School.
But do the Shrewsbury people not say they're not called the Shrews?
Eh?
The name of the football team, right?
Well, it's
remember Shoebury Nest? Remember when Louis Van Gaal said,
hang on.
we will not go to play Shoebury Town.
That's right, yeah.
They actually said that Shrewsbury is known as the Shrews.
Yeah, known as the Shrews, but
it's not Shrewsbury then.
It is Shrewsbury.
Rubbish.
It's Shrewsbury, and they're known as the Shrews because they couldn't be the Shrews. But listen, what I'm saying is, and by the way, Shrewsbury is so insignificant as a football team. Doesn't really matter what they call themselves anyway. But what I'm saying is, let's get back to the main event.
Yes.
The main event is, what's the date of the Champions League final?
The Champions League final, I believe, is June the 3rd.
That's right, absolutely right. That will be the greatest event to happen in Wales if Gareth Bale walks onto that pitch there, his hometown Cardiff. Hello, boy,
Cardiff.
I'm back, in glory. And even more so, just imagine if at the end of the match Real Madrid win, which I believe they will.
I don't. I think Juventus are going to win.
No, that won't happen.
I'm backing Juventus.
And he'll be running around that pitch holding the Champions League trophy, the greatest event in Wales since Offa built his dyke, I'm telling you.
Hang on. First of all, Gareth Bale has already won the Champions League, has he not?
Yeah, not in Wales.
Not in Wales, so I agree with you, that would be quite a big difference thing. However, he is about as Welsh now as you and I are, because he's now left Wales behind. He's got his house there, he's built a golf course, he's got all his family who come from there.
Who was the hero of the Welsh team that got through to the semi-finals of the European Championships?
Well, I'd have to say, actually, it was Chris Coleman.
Yeah, of course it was, the manager, but on the pitch.
It was Chris Coleman.
On the pitch?
Well, I mean, Gareth Bale was injured, was he not?
He kept scoring vital goals.
No, was he not injured in the last game? I think he
doesn't
was.
matter. He was the poster boy.
He's the talisman.
The talisman and the poster boy for the competition.
Yes, I understand all of that. However,
it would be like me, right? Be like me going back to Chester, carrying as Prime Minister or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, that's never going to happen, is it?
No, it's never going to happen, but I'm saying that's what it would be like. The boy, the hometown boy who left to make his way in life as a youngster.
Nobody in Chester thinks of you as a boy from Chester.
And
nobody in Chester thinks of you as the returning hero. No, because you've already sold Chester down the river.
No.
You are now a boy from Stockbroker Belt, Surrey,
as
you continually remind us. You couldn't care less about Chester.
Go and ask Danny Murphy, our great colleague, my great colleague.
Danny Murphy.
Go and ask Danny where he thinks he comes from.
I will say this to you,
and he'll say Chester, okay? And he lives in Stockbroker Belt.
Yeah, I will say this to you. If it wasn't for you, I would never have met Danny Murphy, right?
No, exactly.
You introduced me to Danny Murphy. When we did our show many, many years ago, you used to get Danny Murphy on, and it was entirely down to you.
Exactly.
However, since then, I have become quite good mates with Danny Murphy, right?
Good, I'm glad
and
to
he
hear
now
it.
tells me many things about you, which I would rather not repeat on national radio.
Oh, I don't care if you repeat them, because I have nothing to hide.
He is a bit like you, in the sense that he admits that he has gone south, and he's never going back north again. again.
Well, I do.
He doesn't want to. No, you don't.
Well, sorry. How recently did I stay in the Chester in the Grosvenor Hotel in Chester?
God awful looking hotel
in the Hilton of the North.
How much did it cost you for the Hilton of the North?
I got a bargain deal.
Yeah, I got 35 quid.
No, I got a suite, right, an upgraded suite for just £264.
You were done. You were done.
Which was brilliant.
No, you were absolutely done over like a kipper there. No. That is one of the worst hotels I've ever seen in my life. I would never stay there if they paid me money.
Guess who was in Chester today?
I would say somebody at the races, maybe.
Ray Parlour.
Ray Parlour.
Oh, Raymondo was there.
Who are you going to call?
You're going to call Raymondo, that's right. And
did he have any luck at the Chester races?
Well, I don't know, actually. I didn't speak to him later on.
Why did we get him on?
He was...
why have we not organised to get him on?
Because it's 1:10 in the morning.
Oh, you think he's asleep?
I would imagine that
don't be ridiculous. How well do you know Ray Parlour?
Excuse me, I was about to say, I would imagine he's still in revelry. So
shouldn't we get him on?
Well, I don't think it's the time and the place to expose him.
Send him a text message and say, would you like to come on if you're still awake?
Expose him to the public examination of a day at Chester races, OK?
Why don't you just ask him if you'll come on?
Well, I may already have done that, mightn't I?
Well, I don't know. You haven't told me.
Well,
you said no.
No, I didn't say no. Have you got his
number?
No, sorry?
You got his number?
Of course I got his number.
Well, text him then.
He's got his number. So,
why don't you just give him a text and say, look, Ray, we'd love to get you on.
Yes.
It's Porky's hometown, Chester.
Yes.
Let's have a conversation. Did you see, by the way, that the horse that came second in one of the races was called...
Yes.
What?
It was called something like... The Devil Rides Out or something, wasn't it?
No.
It
was called Stradivarius.
Oh, was it really?
And this was remarked upon by several of our Twitter followers.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Having listened to that god-awful, rambling nonsense that you went on about
the woman who
last
lost her £1.2 million
who lost her Stradivarius.
Violin.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic story. I got huge compliments for that from around the world the following day.
Yeah, but it wasn't as good as you thought it was.
By the way, what was the major feature story on a lot of news programmes today after the election? Because obviously the election dominates everything at the moment.
Election does dominate everything at the moment, I don't know.
It was the dog disease that we highlighted last night.
Alabama rots.
Yes, it was, honestly, it was.
Well, I saw you put something out with a picture of your horrible TV.
Yeah.
It's not smart TV, is it?
It is, yeah. And all these people were applauding me and saying, Porky, you recognised it first, because what we were doing is we would get personal interviews of poor owners whose dogs were suddenly keeling over. Some died, some were saved.
Shocking.
So I do want you to keep an eye on Ziggy.
Well, I mean, there is no question.
Don't get too bladderated this weekend.
As I said to you, it's not a question of being bladderated this weekend, because thanks to you, I'm working most of it.
Yes, that's right. We've got Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Anywhere near Ziggy.
Yeah,
if I manage to see Ziggy, while I'm very quickly flitting backwards and forwards to Sussex, that will be a major thing. Now, how about this from Ryan? He says, the greatest sporting event in Wales was the mighty Wales qualifying for the Euros, Porky. You plank. And G. O'Hara says, the way Isco played last night, Bale will be doing well to get back into the Real team.
No, he won't. He'll be
there. I think
that's
true.
He'll be there. But if anybody knows of an event that's happened in Wales since Offers Dyke, which is...
Well, what about the Rugby World Cup?
Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, that was held there in 1999.
Yeah, but they didn't win it.
No, they didn't win it, but Wales playing in the... No, it was a fantastic event. Wales playing inside the Millennium Stadium in the same year that they had voted yes for independence, right, which was also a massive thing.
But they're not independent.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
They've got their own parliament.
They've
got their own assembly.
No, they're not a separate country.
No, but
they're part of the United Kingdom.
No, but they've got devolution worked for them, so that they've got their own parliament. Do you not know what the Welsh Assembly does?
Yes, and
what do you think the Welsh Assembly does?
It does exactly the same as what the Scottish Assembly does. It doesn't actually, no. With different powers, but it's still reliant on its taxable funding from Westminster, because people don't raise taxes in Wales because there is not enough industry there.
Had you been there on the night that the vote was taking place, and the night that Tom Jones was down in Cardiff Bay,
it's not unusual.
It was unusual for them to vote for independence, which is what they did, and there was a wonderful feeling in Wales, and there was a fantastic sort of feel-good factor going on.
Yeah.
Then they had the Rugby World Cup a couple of months later, and the Welsh team did pretty well, not as well as they should have done, but it was a fantastic occasion.
Well, there's a lot of people in the National Health Service in Wales now who are wishing they never did get semi-sort of autonomy to run the place, because the National Health Service has collapsed in Wales.
That's not true.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
I can tell you, people will tell you that they drive over the border out of Wales back into England if they want some National Health Service treatment, because the National Health Service in Wales, it is reported, is having a great deal of problems because administratively it's not doing well.
Well, it's not so much that it's administratively not doing well. It's like many things
it's not being run
which
properly.
Are funded by, socialism. They don't actually work very well.
No, exactly.
Because they run out of money. eventually the money just runs out.
No, they think money grows on trees.
I know.
That is the problem.
Do you see the Labour Party today said that they're going to take away all fees for students, right? They've admitted that it's going to cost £7 billion.
Oh, right.
But they haven't said where the £7 billion is going to come from.
No.
£7 billion, just, take it right out of the air.
Don't worry, we get
Tremendous.
$7 billion.
We do cover the election here, but we have to do it in a very balanced way. So later on in the show, we'll be having a go at something the Tories have said, in order to make it sound as if we're trying to be as fair as we can be. This is TalkSport.
Yes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
The old hometown looks the same as I step down from the train, and there to meet me is my mama and papa. Down the road I look, and there runs Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home.
Should we wait for the big finish?
Yes,
you like this bit?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
You do like this, don't you? Somehow it doesn't sound quite as sort of rousing as you would expect it to be.
Well, it's not supposed to be rousing. This is a very sad song.
Why is it sad?
Well, you know why it's sad. Have you listened to the song all the way through?
Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah, well, you know at the end what happens.
What happens at the end?
This is all a dream. He wakes up, he's in a prison cell, and tomorrow morning they're going to hang him. And he gets hanged.
Well, he gets hanged?
Yeah.
Did he go forward to the people who gets hanged?
Yeah.
How can he keep singing if he gets hanged?
No, you idiot. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a ballad about a boy who was wrongly accused of a crime.
Right.
And the last time he slept before he's executed, he's dreaming of the green grass of home, his parents, his Mary, his girlfriend with the ruby red lips.
Well, what's he getting hanged for?
For a crime he's not committed, but he's been convicted of.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
So what, mistaken identity or something?
Mistaken identity.
It's not like he's going to turn out
listen.
Go on. There's nothing about hanging.
Didn't you hear the last words?
No.
As they lay me beneath the green, green grass of home.
All right.
He's executed.
Really? That's horrible, that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, I'm sorry, but, you should keep up with these things.
I had no idea.
And then at the end, he says the oak tree, and the shade of the oak tree was the shade of his grave.
All right.
It's nothing
Are you
to
sure
do.
it's about murder and all that?
It's about a man who's executed, and the last time he sleeps before he's put to death, he dreams of his life before his eyes, his parents in the valleys of Wales, the green, green grass of home, Mary running down the road with her flaxen hair. And then he wakes up, and I mean, the classic words are, then I wake up, and before me are 4 grey walls that surround me.
How do you know the words to this so well?
Because I've listened to it over the years.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but you were talking...
I've got better things to do.
Except that you were talking in total ignorance, saying, oh, isn't this great? What a rousing song.
Well, I said it's not very rousing.
How can a song about a man who is about to be executed be rousing?
I didn't know it was anything about execution.
Well, you should listen to it.
Now, here's one from Freddie. He says, having brought up in Shrewsbury, there's a small minority of posh planks that the fat man can recite Shrewsbury to.
Yes.
So, in fact, you're wrong about Shrewsbury.
No, I'm not.
It should be pronounced Shrewsbury.
No, I'm not.
Well, I'm afraid you are. Why don't you just admit it? Because if the Shrews is the nickname of Shrewsbury Town Football Club, then surely you must admit that the local people who live in Shrewsbury pronounce it Shrewsbury.
Right, OK. All I could say to you is when you abbreviate a word, you have to sometimes change the pronunciation of it to make sense.
Yeah, but the people who live in Shrewsbury have just told you that they pronounce it Shrewsbury. So why don't you just admit you're wrong?
No, the person there got rude and said that properly educated people who want to call it Shrewsbury are mocked by the lesser educated who want to call it Shrewsbury. That's all he said. He didn't say there's a right way or wrong way of doing it. He said there are 2 ways of doing it.
Well, no, there aren't, because you don't call the Shrewsbury Town team the Shrews, you call them the Shrews.
Yeah, but you call them Shrewsbury. I always have done, and I was born just a couple of miles from the border.
You've got it wrong.
Well, that's your opinion. You see, this is a problem with you lately.
When will you ever admit that you've actually got something wrong?
No, you see, this is since you gave up smoking.
You've
gone
given up smoking.
Very dogmatic about, this is right, that's right.
No.
Why did you...
I just want you to admit you're wrong once in a while, and so do everybody else who listens, because they think that it's actually like some kind of mental illness that you've got, that you can't admit that you're ever wrong.
No, that's not the case at all.
Really?
I mean, why did you have a furious, loud, shouting outburst about prostitute at a hotel in London when we were talking to Mr. Goldberg and Jason earlier.
Who's Mr. Goldberg?
Goldstein, actually.
Goldstein?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you can't even remember the guy's name, I don't think there's much chance of you remembering the conversation that we had.
Well, I did, but then...
You told me that you could go to the Dorchester and get ice cream, which is fit for a child, right?
Grosvenor House Hotel.
I said that you could go to any hotel.
Grosvenor House Hotel?
Yeah, I said you could go to the Grosvenor House Hotel and also get a Russian hooker.
So now you've forgotten the name of the hotel?
No, well, I couldn't care less what the name of the hotel is that you mentioned.
You're very confused.
I'm not confused. You don't remember the name of the guy that's on the show before us.
Of course I do.
Right. You call him the wrong name deliberately, just to humiliate him. Is that what you're saying?
No, of course I wouldn't do that.
Thank goodness for
ridiculous.
That. All I'm telling you is that the fact that you claim to have gone to the Dorchester or the Grosvenor House or the Park Lane Hotel or whichever hotel that you haven't been to for about 15 years and you've ordered some kind of child's ice cream, all I was meaning to elaborate with you was that you could also go there and order a Russian hooker.
Well, it doesn't mean anything. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Well, I don't think you should pretend to be such an ingenue. You're the one that's been to Russia, and you've said to me before that you were quite easily approached in the lobby of various hotels in Moscow by Russian prostitutes.
That was in Moscow.
I've never been approached by a Russian prostitute.
Yeah, well, you've never been to Russia, that's why.
That's true.
Right, now then...
what should we talk about now?
I think we should really keep, more family issues in this show and
Absolutely.
not get diverted and that sort of thing.
Right, it's a family show.
What about Wayne Rooney staying at Manchester United? Is that going to cause a big kerfuffle?
Is he staying at Manchester United?
Yes.
Is he not going to China?
No.
Is he not going to the MLS?
No.
Does he actually have the OK for Manchester United to stay there?
Well, he says, I want to stay with Manchester United.
Well, that's not the same, is it?
I think it is, because he's got a contract lasting 2 more years after the end of this season. Wayne Rooney has dropped the biggest hint yet that he. Oh, hang on, why have they written this? So the Mirror version is Wayne Rooney has dropped the biggest hint yet that he will leave Manchester United this summer.
There you go.
Rooney is set to play his last European game at Old Trafford tonight as United, with a 1-0 lead from the first leg, take on Celta Vigo for a place in the European League final.
Yeah.
Well, I can't quite understand how that marries up to all the other reports.
Hang on, you just told me he's staying.
Yeah, well, he said he wants to stay. Said he wants to stay.
Well, that story just says he wants to leave.
Yeah, there's another one here. It says Wayne Rooney has given the clearest indication yet that his 13-year career at Manchester United will end this summer, with the striker admitting he has to leave Old Trafford to play.
So where are you getting this story about him wanting to stay?
Well, because the ones I read earlier and the ones I was listening to earlier said he does not want to leave Old Trafford in the summer.
Are you sure that you're getting any of this right?
I'm certain I'm getting it right.
In some kind of hyperbaric oxygen
chamber. Well, here we are. This is somebody who's speaking my language.
Here we go.
Ian Ladyman from the Mail.
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney says he wants to stay at Manchester United next season.
Yes.
United captain has been used sparingly by manager Jose Mourinho. 31-year-old's expected to leave the club in the summer, but said at a press conference at tonight's Europa League semi-final, would I like to stay? Yeah, of course. I've been at this club for 13 years and I want to play football.
Yeah.
Asked if he wanted to continue to play at United, and he added, of course I do. Of course you want to play. I've had to keep working and try and take my chance. I haven't thrown my toys out the pram. I'm a football player. You see, so you can interpret it either way you want, I suppose.
So this is coming out of a press conference where he is actually being quoted directly.
Yes.
By which, from what you've just read, it sounds as though he would like to stay. But of course he would. But the question is whether Jose Mourinho wants him.
Absolutely.
I don't think he does.
Wayne Rooney is desperate to stay at Manchester United, but fears he may have to quit. So they've got so this is the Express version, and they're hedging their bets. They've got an either or. Wayne Rooney is desperate to stay, but fears he may have to quit. United election admits not being a regular starter. And I haven't thrown my toys out the pram. So he's saying he deserves another chance. That's what he's saying. Yeah.
Well, I don't think he does, though, does he? I mean, his season has not been very good. And as much as he's your mate and you've written books about him and all the rest of it, he has not really performed in the way that you would expect somebody on that kind of money to perform for Manchester United. When we talked about the Arsenal game, and you said he was man of the match. But in fact, his performance and his statistics from that game were not really quite what you want from somebody who's getting paid upwards of $265,000 a week.
It's only, I think it's over 300. And by the way, when you say he's my mate, I mean, that's not the case. I mean, I'm a huge admirer of Wayne Rooney.
You've written a book about him.
Yeah, but I've never spoken to him.
Well, you've never spoken to him?
No, I've never spoken to Wayne Rooney. Never.
Well, even when you were in the FA?
No.
Even when he saved your life? Even when he sent you a shirt that he signed, supposedly?
Yes.
Why did he do that then?
Because somebody asked him to, and he did. But I've never actually spoken to him. I was in a hotel once in Germany when the England squad were there, and I was allowed into the inner sanctum.
Does he even know who you are?
I think he's sort of aware of the fact that I've been talking about him for a few years or something. But funny if Ryan Giggs told me that.
But he sent you a shirt signed.
Yes, he did.
You spent the first 30 pages of your book Rooney Tunes.
Yes.
About how Wayne Rooney saved my life.
That's right. I did.
And how he deliberately sent you a shirt. Signed by him.
Yes.
To make you come back to life.
Yes, he did. Yes.
But you're telling me now he's never heard of you.
No, I didn't say that. I said I think he has, because Ryan Giggs told me that. I was at Old Trafford once, and I was sitting like on the edge of the director's box. Ryan Giggs was injured, and he was sitting next to me. And I was just having a chat with him, and it was obvious that, they knew who I was, so to speak, and Wayne Rooney knew who I was. But I've never actually spoken to him. I was in a hotel in Germany once, and I was in the inner sanctum, with the FA people.
But you worked for the FA, though?
I didn't when I was there this time.
Oh, okay.
That was many years before. And but I kept, friends with him. And he was sitting a few feet away, but out of the sense of respect, I didn't get up and walk over and say, hello, Wayne, because it was in the middle of the World Cup.
Was this after the book had come out?
No. The book came out in the run-up to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa.
So that was later?
That was later.
Right. Because if it was me, to be honest, and I appreciate what you're saying.
Yes.
But you would think that you would go up to somebody like that and say, look, terribly sorry, Wayne. I don't mind me introducing myself, but I've just written a book about you.
No, I hadn't written the book.
And, it'd be great if you could help me with it, or at least give me some kind of endorsement for it.
No, I hadn't written the book. I hadn't even had plans to write it then. And over the years, I've had a dialogue with Paul Stretford, who's his agent and mentor. So, yeah, he is aware of who I am. But, I mean, I've never been rushing around, sort of chasing Wayne Rooney all over the place. I spoke to his dad a lot. Used to speak to his dad. Used to see his dad in the pub opposite the Winslow, opposite Goodison Park. Used to have a few drinks there. But, you don't have to have spoken to Wayne Rooney to know a lot about his life, because he's probably one of the most famous men in this country.
That's true, but if you write a book about somebody famous, it's not bad to try and get their kind of okay from it. Or to say, look, would you like to endorse it in some way?
Well, obviously, through the publishers, he was made aware the book was being written. Right. But I have to say, I think about 100 books have been written about Wayne Rooney, so it wasn't anything unusual.
You're going back to Tom Jones again.
Sorry?
Going back to Tom Jones again.
Yeah, it's not unusual.
It's not
That's
unusual.
right, yeah. So I was amazed you didn't know that Tom Jones song was not about a celebration of going home. It was mourning his death.
I've never given it that much thought.
Well, usually you're pretty hot on the ball with lyrics to songs, but you clearly lost this one altogether.
Well, it's not a competition. It may have been something I knew and I've forgotten about because there's so little consequence in my life that I couldn't be bothered cluttering up my brain with it.
Yeah, well,
how about this from Freddie, who says, like El Fatso, I'm a Welsh boy, but of the southern variety. Just taken out of mumbles as a kid. How does he pronounce the bird named shrew? As in the taming of.
What a ridiculous question.
Well, how would you describe the taming of the shrew? How would you say that?
Taming of the shrew.
Not the taming of the shrew.
No, because there's no follow-up to the SHREW. Shrewsbury is Shrewsbury because of the berry on the back of the word.
Can you think of anything else which is spelt REW, which is pronounced O?
No, but let me tell you this. If Eden was a word, EDIN, it would be pronounced Eden.
EDIN?
Yes.
Well, as in Edinburgh?
Well, no, I'm just saying, if it was EDIN, it would be pronounced Eden, wouldn't it?
Edinburgh. No, Edinburgh is not pronounced Edinburgh, it's pronounced Edinburgh.
Would you please just listen to what I'm saying?
I am.
If the word was just EDIN, as you are saying the word is just SHREW.
Right.
If Eden was on its own, it would be pronounced Eden.
No, it wouldn't. Well, there is no word Eden, is there?
No. I wish you...
See, why
are you sure you're not
upset?
on funny substances at the moment because you've given up tobacco?
I've been taking crack all day.
Eden, EDIN, is elongated to Edinburgh and pronounced differently with the other letters on the end of the word.
Is that your logic?
Yeah, that's the same with shrew.
No, it's not.
Shrew and Shrewsbury.
No, it's completely different.
No, it is.
Shrewsbury, right, is the elongated version of the word shrew, which exists.
No.
Edinburgh is not an elongated version of the word Eden, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
No, I don't. But I see what you mean, but you're clearly not picking things up.
All right. Porky's in a bad mood now because I've been telling him he's wrong. That's just the way it goes. This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. Talk Sport.
This is is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Sophie Nicolaou's coming up a little bit later on. She'll be telling us what she thinks of Arsenal's season and whether or not Arsene Wenger, in fact, is going to do the most ridiculous thing he's probably ever done and get Arsenal into the top four. Here's one from Darren in London who says, Porky, don't forget that John Charles used to play for Juventus and Juve fans voted John Charles their best ever foreign player.
They did, yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well, I think he was also voted the best ever Welsh player.
Yeah.
Because you know that he played for Wales at both centre-forward and centre-half.
Yes.
I mean, he was the most astonishingly talented footballer.
He was very versatile, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah, he was indeed. And I think it's going to be a fantastic final, by the way.
Yeah.
Juventus-Real Madrid. And you think that this will be the first time that a team actually manages to get back-to-back wins.
Well,
but I just think Juventus have got the big mo this year somehow.
I'm not writing them off, and I'm not saying that they won't win it. But what I always feel these days is that any team that's got Ronaldo in it can't lose at the end of the day. Well, But
did you not think last night, though, when after the first sort of 10 minutes of the game, suddenly it was 2-0 to Atletico Madrid? It could have all gone horribly wrong.
No, I didn't, honestly.
Really?
No, I didn't.
Are you sure?
No, I didn't, because the thing about Ronaldo is Real Madrid can lose when he's in the team if they're playing on a sort of balmy Friday night in somewhere like Sevilla or Parma or something like that. But they will never lose with him in the team when they're on the big stage, because he is such a massively big stage player.
Yeah.
So they never lose big games when Ronaldo... I mean, what Ronaldo does in big games is he doesn't wilt, he doesn't suddenly fade away. He scores hat-tricks.
Yeah.
He is doing that consistently. And who's to say he won't score a hat? In fact, that would be a great bet for him to score a hat-trick in the Champions League final, because that's the sort of thing he does, you know?
Yes, indeed. And I suppose what you would say, even though he didn't necessarily play a blinder last night, Isco scored a goal. Did you see that footage, by the way, of Isco making fun of Tony Adams?
No, I didn't actually.
Which was in the game when Real Madrid played Granada. And,
sorry,
Granada,
not last night.
Not last night.
Oh, yeah,
no,
I saw it then. Yeah, I did.
When he was sitting when he was sitting in the dugout,
that's right,
and sort of shouting at Tony Adams, who was wearing a waistcoat.
That's right.
So get him a Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I know.
Which a lot of people actually thought was a little bit over the top.
Well,
they thought it was a bit disrespectful.
I think if you put yourself out there and behave like Tony Adams did, in which he went there and said, I'm going to save them, I'm going to kick backside, I'm not going to be popular, I'm going to teach them how to defend in the defence, I'm going to teach them how to defend in the midfield, I'm going to teach them how to defend in the forward line, makes a complete idiot of himself.
Yes.
And then is photographed with the strangest physical interpretations of tactics and training, which held him up to ridicule again. And then you go and lose games one after the other, 3 in succession. You don't even score a goal.
No.
Well, I don't blame people in Spain who are purists in their football from taking the mickey out of it.
It's a terrible place to end up there, isn't it, for Tony Adams? To have to become the butt of everybody's joke.
Yes.
Because you're so bad at what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
That actually even people like Isco are making fun of you from the dugout.
Yes.
Now, how about this from somebody called Sam, who says Edin Dzeko is pronounced how it's spelt, Porky.
Yes.
You plank.
Edin who?
Edin Dzeko.
Yeah, well, what's
he
got to
play
do
for Manchester City? Well, you were saying Edin is pronounced Edin. But in fact, it's pronounced Edin, isn't it?
Well, yes,
but that's a name, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a name, and also it's from a language outside of English. In the English language, or the Scottish language, it would be pronounced as Edin.
Would it?
Well, don't you remember the great Norse god Odin?
Well, he's not English, is he?
No, he's not. But it wasn't pronounced Odin. It was pronounced Odin.
But he's not English.
No,
you just made the argument that Edin doesn't count because he's not English.
No. Have you ever seen the word Odin written in Norwegian? Of course you haven't, because he's a mythical figure who appeared in American superhero magazines, and in America they speak English. Okay,
so a Norse god is pronounced okay for you as far as your argument is concerned, but a Bosnian footballer is pronounced wrongly for you, even though he plays in England.
No, a Bosnian footballer's name is, and this is all getting very boring, by the way, because it's going
especially
on
when you get it wrong.
And on.
You hate it when you're wrong. Just admit you're wrong, and then we can move on.
A Bosnian footballer's name is pronounced in his own language.
Odin.
Anyway, they want to pronounce it in his language.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Yeah,
without you admitting
I've been
that
trying to move
wrong.
on for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, but if you would only ever once admit that you're wrong, people would be very happy.
It's not a question
But why
of right
don't you
and
ever
wrong.
do it, though?
No, it's a question of trying to interpret things.
I see.
You're very short-tempered these days.
I'm not at all short-tempered.
I think it's because you've given up smoking.
No, you keep saying that. You're going to keep
relying
using
on
that.
other things.
No, you keep using that as some kind of stick to beat me with.
No.
I've given up smoking. Big deal.
Yeah.
I don't care. It
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah.
But you have still not given up, not admitting that you're ever wrong.
Well, that's not a question of it. It's like, determined to prove Porky wrong.
I'm not determined to prove you wrong.
But anyway, here we go.
It's not pointless at
now,
all.
aren't you a big fan of Pink Floyd?
I am a big fan of Pink Floyd.
And are you going along to the exhibition that's opening shortly of their Life and Times?
I wasn't planning to, no.
This started with the Rolling Stones, didn't it? They opened a big exhibition of the Life and Times of the Rolling Stones.
That's true.
And other groups started doing it.
Well, I mean, it's been going on for a while. The Who, in fact, my friend and I, who used to be big fans of the Who, did an exhibition for the Who way back at the beginning of the sort of, I guess the beginning of the 80s, actually, back at the ICA galleries in Pall Mall. Around about the time they released Who Are You?
Right.
So it's been going on for a while.
OK, well, listen, it's in your manor, so to speak, because it's at the V&A, which is...
the V&A's in Kensington.
London's, but it's in London, I suppose, which is where you were born. And it's an exhibition which starts on May the 13th, right?
Uh-huh.
And within this exhibition, they have all those fantastic, those fantastic things they used to fly over Battersea Power Station and all that kind of stuff.
The flying pigs.
The flying pigs and all that. They're all going to be in the exhibition.
Well, that was for animals, wasn't it, the album?
That was the animal, that's right. And, animals, that's right, And then the one with the metal heads. Those big metal heads?
The big metal heads?
With the big metal heads.
I don't know.
From the cover of the album, The Division Bell.
The Division Bell.
Yeah.
You see, that's a bit later for me, for Pink Floyd.
Right.
By that time, I'd sort of moved on, to be fair. I think The Wall was about the last Pink Floyd album I bought.
Right, OK.
Did you ever see the movie?
Which one?
The Wall.
No. Was that about the Pink Floyd?
Well, it was a Pink Floyd album called The Wall. It was a double album.
I see,
and they made a film of it, and it was all about sort of the First World War.
Yeah.
Gerald Scarfe did a lot of cartoons.
Okay. Good. I'm a bit short, really, on Pink Floyd, in the sense that, I need to catch up on their music. I'm sure I like it, because one of the great songs of my youth, and in fact, I remember I fancied a girl called Julia an awful lot when this record came out, and it was... Teacher, Leave Those Kids Alone.
Yes. Well, that was from The Wall.
Another brick in the wall.
We don't need no education.
We don't need your education, right? Yeah. Now, I was working in the petrol station those days, and she lived in the big house opposite, and she used to come over and bring me things to eat and drink. Yeah.
Well, like?
Well, like cans of beer and...
this was a girlfriend?
And sandwiches. Well, it wasn't a girlfriend. It was a girl who... She went to the local ballet school.
Oh, yeah.
But she saw my muscular presence on the forecourt of the...
Muscular presence?
Yes, of the petrol station.
You have been many things in your life.
House, yeah.
I don't think muscular has ever been one of them.
No, she did. And then she started...
What was her name?
Julia.
Julia?
Yeah. And then she came over and started pretending that she wanted to buy things in the shop, you know what I mean?
Well, she obviously fancied you.
She did, yeah, she did actually, yeah.
So she brought you beer and various sort of things to eat.
Yes, that's right.
And then she pretended she wanted to come and spend time with you.
Yes, that's right.
So what did you do about that?
I got in there, so to speak.
You got in there?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
It's a charming way of describing that.
I started visiting her house when I'd finished working at the petrol station.
Did she live alone?
No. She lived with her parents, but they lived in a very big house.
Okay.
And by going around the corner down the edge of the house, there was a back...
back entrance?
There was a back alley. And I used to creep up there and then climb over her back wall.
There's too many jokes that I'm not going to make.
No, exactly. Climb over her back wall.
Climbed over her back wall.
And she was always waiting at the kitchen door.
Was she?
To welcome me in.
Was there a cat flap?
I've no idea. I don't think they had a cat. And then once into the house, it was easy to sort of negotiate a route back to her room without her parents getting involved.
They never saw you?
Never saw me.
Really?
No, because it was a very big house and they lived at the front of the house and she sort of lived in a...
Was it the back?
Yeah, they'd given her a sort of... She had her own sort of, not granny flat, because she wasn't a granny, but she had her own sort of, location.
Granny.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
What sort of age was she?
Oh, about 16.
16?
Yeah.
You sure she wasn't underage?
No, definitely not.
Did you check?
Yeah, of course I did, because I was about 16 as well, you see.
Yes.
So it was...
and so what, would you go to her room?
It was juvenile love, so to speak.
So you'd go to her room and roll about for a while.
Yes.
In a disgraceful manner.
Yes.
And then just leave.
Yes.
Really?
That's right.
Well, how long would you stay there for?
Oh, a couple of hours.
Couple of hours?
Yeah, because you see, the thing is, it was indeterminate as to what time I left the petrol station, because what you'd normally do is...
Did you ply her with sort of red diesel or anything?
No,
so, you can have as much red diesel as you like, darling.
No, well, she didn't have a car or anything, did she? Her parents had cars and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, it was so flexible that if it was a busy night, you'd stay sometimes till, maybe 11, 12. And if it was a quiet night, you'd maybe move off about 10 o'clock or something.
Did she have like a sign in the window or anything?
Not at all.
A sort of rabbit or something?
Not at all. I mean, as I say, she used to come over and visit and pretend to buy things and then say, look, I'll be around at 11 o'clock.
Did you give her things that she didn't actually buy?
No, never.
For free? I bet you did.
I
bet you gave her free stuff from the garage.
Listen.
And then pretended that she'd bought them.
Oh, I see. So you think that I really would have charmed her by, here, Julia, have a set of spark plugs.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. There you
or
go.
have some free, a free torch or something.
And a free can of oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Or, look, here's a Jubilee clip. How about that? When you eventually get a car,
exactly what
you can use that to fix your radiator.
Yeah, but they sold
brilliant.
things other than... No, you could have sold her a packet of jelly beans, cigarettes, anything.
No, ridiculous. No, none of that. I wasn't in that sort of...
Really?
That sort of person.
I find that hard to believe.
No, not at all.
Anyway, it's a staggering admission from Porky once again.
But the one thing that bonded us together was Brick in the Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, she used to play it on her record player in her bedroom.
Did she have the album then?
Well, I presume she must have done, yes. Unless it was released as a single. No, that was a single, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we played the single.
Okay. So there we are.
Yeah.
The Wall by Mike Porky Parry. This is Talk Sport. Sophie Nicolau coming up next.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Arsenal. Marseille. Arsenal. Welsh.
Talk Sport, we are the Two Mics. I'm terribly disappointed to tell you that's the 1993 Arsenal FA Cup final song, apparently. They are, of course, in the FA Cup final. They could win it. Yep. A lot of people are saying, what if they actually won the FA Cup final against Chelsea and ended up somehow sneaking back into the top four?
Well, if they
sneak
back in the top four, that's a miracle. Frankly, at the moment,
it would be.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It would be, but it's the sort of thing that Arsene Wenger might do just to annoy everybody. Let's talk to Sophie Nicolau, who is, of course, our favourite celebrity Arsenal fan in Los Angeles. Sophie, very good morning to you.
Hello, lads. How you doing?
Yeah,
always
well
lovely
indeed.
hearing your dulcet tone.
Absolutely
and yourself,
right.
obviously.
Now, did that bring a tear to your eye listening to that old FA Cup song?
It's a shocker, isn't it?
It's awful.
Was it the one that's called Hot Stuff?
I'm not sure, but it was
93 apparently.
93, yeah. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
Absolutely
horrendous.
But it has reached that kind of ridiculous point, hasn't it? Where almost anything is possible now. They're not going to get anywhere near first or second or third, but could they creep into the top four?
I think, knowing how we usually finish the end of the season, we capitulate around February, March, as we know, and then we go on a run and end up qualifying for the Champions League. There's something about this point in the season that Arsene Wenger knows how to prepare the team and how to play. And there is definitely a different sense to Arsenal since we started the three at the back. I wish he had switched to these tactics a little bit earlier on in the season, brought Rob Holding in a little bit earlier on in the season after those awful losses to West Brom and Crystal Palace. You've got to play the what-if game with Arsenal. What if we'd beaten West Brom? What if we'd beaten Palace? What if we didn't draw in that terrible game against Bournemouth? What if he'd changed the tactics earlier on? What if we were the Arsenal that beat Chelsea 3-0 in September? Too many what-ifs, but I fancy us, and I was doing some math with David, the producer, before I came on the air. And I fancy Liverpool to lose against West Ham, and they beat Middlesbrough. I think City will beat Leicester, but they'll draw their last two. And I think we will draw against Stoke and beat Sunderland and Everton. And that would put us on goal difference with Liverpool. There's a possibility that fourth spot could come down to goal difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. But the odds on that happening, Sophie, and you're right that, it always... Arsene Wenger always seems to be able to turn the equation his way in the last sort of half dozen games of the season. But that would be quite remarkable if it happened that season. And if it did, for you, would it be a good thing or a bad thing for the club?
I think that's when he grabs the FA Cup, puts it under his arm, and he rides off into the sunset. Because if he can walk away from this season winning the FA Cup, everyone's assuming that Chelsea are going to win the FA Cup. We're pretty good in the FA Cup.
Yes.
I know they are too, but Arsene Wenger knows how to win that trophy at least.
Yes.
And so I think we're in with a really good shout. I'm a bit worried about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's injury. He's been on fire in this latter half of the season. That's going to be a bit of a problem for us. But I think that if he achieves that goal, don't you guys think it would be the perfect way for him to depart? But he's not going to do that. And all of this infighting right now at the club, at board level, the fact that he's not getting on with Gazidis, the whole press conference was horrible, wasn't it, when he was asked about the director of football position?
Yes.
That was a little bit embarrassing in terms of how he handled that. If you're him, you'd walk away. But he's got an ego. As well as being a lovely gentleman, he's got a massive ego, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to walk away.
I don't think he is, because he should have really walked away when Arsenal won the FA Cup the time before last, rather than the last time. And I just get this impression that if you were to follow him around, with a sort of ghost camera, you would see him walking around the Emirates, not talking to anyone, going into an office and sitting down and nobody coming in. I've got this image in my head of a guy that nobody talks to.
Sophie?
Yeah. Sorry, did I lose you guys?
Yeah, sorry. No, just for a second there. No, Mike was just explaining that he's a man who drifts around like Banquo's ghost.
Billy No Mates, right? The guy who kind of at the office that no one really wants to talk to or doesn't know what to say anymore. I just think that, we've been our own worst enemy this season, and he should have been more adaptable. And this is the problem. Everyone's expecting him to change and embrace a director of football. You can't ask a man to change. You guys have had this conversation with me before. You guys aren't going to change your ways. You are who you are.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that at this point in your lives you're going to change your habits or the way you live life, the way you strategize. And for Wenger, it's almost going to be impossible for him to do that. So if the club really want change, they'll make the decision as opposed to allowing him to make the decision. And I think what's unfortunate for Arsenal fans, and I feel for Arsenal fans, and God bless the away fans again, going to Southampton, singing their hearts out, really supporting the club. They deserve so much love and credit because they've stuck with the team throughout the season, especially this last 3 months and stuff. So I just think it's unfortunate the club is run like a business and not a club that wants to win trophies. And that's the difference between the modern Arsenal and the old Arsenal. And it's, as you know, football's a business now. I mean, look, you've got agents getting £41 million for player transfers.
Unbelievable.
You finished.
Did you see, by the way, the story today that said that one of the players that he represents is Romelu Lukaku?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So presumably he's going to try the same thing on Chelsea, isn't he?
Well, I imagine so.
But the clubs are responsible as well, aren't they? I mean, they've kind of created the beasts, and they've taken advantage of the fact that the clubs are willing to do this. And you've got a few agents that own a few players, and they're milking it.
Right.
And so, I digress a little bit, but, Arsenal is run like a business, and unfortunately it suits the board and it suits Stan Kroenke, the owner. And, he does that with his teams here. Colorado Rapids fans are not happy with the way the team is being run. It's a team owned by Kroenke.
But isn't the difference with Kroenke, isn't the difference, Sophie, with Kroenke in America, that he doesn't run a team in America which is as sort of, highly thought of as Arsenal, is in the sort of top echelon of the game, which is what Arsenal is meant to be. I mean, none of the stuff that he owns in America is anywhere near that, is it?
Well, the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl under him. I think they won the Super Bowl under their old owner, Georgina. Her last name escapes me now.
But that's what I mean. They're an also-ran, though, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they're a resurgent club. They've moved cities. They're in LA. They're building a gazillion-dollar stadium. They've got the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles. They're really trying to rebuild the club. They've invested heavily in the draft this year as well. And so he's hoping the Rams, they're ways away from winning the Super Bowl. They're ways away from potentially getting and having an effective run in the playoffs. And so, yes, to answer your question, Mike, his teams here aren't performing exactly. And Arsenal's the jewel in the crown. But he's a business guy and he's running Arsenal like a business.
Thing is, Sophie, what Mike Graham, my MG's just said about the agents and yourself as well, football has only reached the point where business has been for decades. There's always a middleman in a deal, and if the value of the commodity that you're buying and selling is £100 million, if that's a business, somebody in the middle of that deal would have taken a huge commission on that business changing hands. And so a player changing hands is exactly the same in terms of the business model. You see what I mean? And that's existed in America for years. It doesn't come as any surprise to American owners of football clubs. And there's 10 of those now in the Premier League. And that's why it's been allowed to flourish.
And unfortunately, in the balance, though, isn't the same in the sense that in the US you've got the salary caps and you've got a certain amount of money you can spend.
Yeah.
It's similar models. Obviously, in baseball you get much more guaranteed money, but I think there's going to be this massive expose coming with agents. I don't know. Don't you just feel like it's going to implode at some point? And maybe this is just kind of like the first of many stories we'll hear.
I'm not sure.
But what have they done wrong?
But exactly. I agree with Mike. I don't know what you can do to stop it happening because, as somebody quite rightly pointed out on TalkSport in the last 24 hours, the agreement between the agent and the player is a private agreement between two independent people. You can't suddenly start legislating and saying to the agent, you can only take this much.
That affects the market.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Affects the market,
but we live in a free market, though, Sophie.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't live in communist Russia, And you can't suddenly go, well, this bit's all right. It's okay to charge people £35,000 a year for a season ticket, but you can't pay the agent $40 million when he brings the most expensive player in the world to your club. It's either one or the other.
I guess so, but I think that it's a little bit like the film industry. Back in the day, the studios owned the industry. Now the industry is run by the agents and the agencies.
Right.
They'll say, you know what, we'll have Tom Cruise in this film, but we're going to give you X, X, and X, and they're all under the same agency.
Exactly. And this guy's going to be the director.
But the football clubs have allowed this to happen as well. It's gotten way out of control. Too much power to the agent. Too much say in terms of from a money point of view, they know they can charge it, or whatever their private agreement is with their own client. That's one thing. But football clubs have to be a little bit more responsible as well. And I think that they've added a little to the chaos that has been created in the transfer market and dealings and how agents behave and what they expect and what they ask for.
Well, good luck with changing that. Let me ask you one quick question for which you only have 20 seconds to answer. Watching the Madrid derby tonight, did you see a massive improvement in Spanish football as opposed to English football? Do you think we've got a long way to go?
Football's cyclical. I think the top teams have been great. I think Atletico have been good. Real Madrid have been good. Bayern Munich have been good in spots. Juventus have been great. Chelsea have been good. It would have been interesting to see how Chelsea would have handled that. And I never do this, but a shout out to my pal Mark Henty, who's a lifelong Newcastle fan. Yeah. He suffered following that team for so many years. He loves listening to you guys. You're two of his favourite radio hosts. And so I wanted to say well done to your Magpies.
Brilliant stuff.
Okay,
we'll be coming up there very, very soon. Of course, Porky's already pledged to do that when Everton play Newcastle in the following season. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed. She is the soccer diva. We are the two mics. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. And I should say to you, Mr. Parry, I've been sent this by one of our Twitterers called William, who says there's an operation called Tiger Air, right, who are offering what is being called the cheapest airfares ever. Flights from Sydney and Melbourne to Cairns on sale for just $1.
Well, on what basis? Where do they make their money?
Well, I don't know. The airline will put 14,000 bargain fares up for grabs from 12 p.m. on Wednesday. Yeah. Travel period stretches from between mid-July to mid-September. I suppose it's some kind of...
well, it's a kind of Ryanair thing where you pay $60 for this and $30 for that.
It'll cost $95 one way and $1 return.
Yeah,
so that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that's not bad, though.
It's all right.
So, I mean, in other words, if that was the case when we were flying to New York to go and see our many fans who are going to come and see us in the City Winery, that we could get a flight over there for $200 and then one back for $1. That'll be all right.
Yeah, well, I won't be flying on a $200 flight to New York.
What makes you think that you're going to be flying in some kind of special capacity?
Well, I'm going to be flying at least business or club.
Well, you're going to presumably take that out of your own bank account rather than the two mics.
Well, I mean, I'm flying business or club. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but in order it does matter who pays for it because I'm not paying for you to fly first class or club.
Well, you get back down the back of the plane. I'm happy with that.
But that's fine. But what I'm saying is the two mics as an entity, which is jointly owned by you and I, is not for me to say to you, well, you go ahead and spend a bucket load of money flying at some ludicrous expense while I travel at the back of the plane and somehow it all comes out of the same bank account.
Well,
that's not going to happen.
You've got to have higher and loftier ambitions. We need to be more successful, raise more money and fund those sort of flights. You can't be flying around in economy, I'm afraid.
I don't mind flying economy.
Anyway, listen, I'll tell you what I was going to talk to you about because you are, slightly sort of off beam at the moment.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're edgy, and I think it's because you've given up smoking.
It's not. No, I mean, people have been asking me this question now for quite some time.
Yes.
Ever since I've given up smoking, you have used me giving up smoking as some kind of excuse about why I'm so irascible in dealing with you.
Yes.
The reason I'm irascible in dealing with you is that I've been working with you now for pretty much 3 years solidly.
Yes.
And you drive me insane.
Really?
That's the reason I'm irascible.
Okay.
You drive me completely and utterly balmy, barking mad, and the fact that I haven't throttled you and strangled you is a miracle.
Yeah, but you see, my pursuit of excellence gets on your nerves because you've never had a pursuit of excellence.
Your pursuit of excellence does not exist.
Compromise.
No, it doesn't. No, your pursuit of excellence does not exist. Your pursuit of the inane and your absolute and utter sort of belief that you are right about absolutely everything is what would send any normal person, including the Pope, by the way, into an absolute tailspin of despair.
Right. Well, there's an answer to this. What you do is in future, right, and I've seen this happen before as well, at your desk you have a red light and a green light. And when you don't want to be bothered or disturbed, you don't even want anybody to speak to you, you have the red light switched on.
Okay.
And anybody who comes towards your desk sees that your red light, because it's usually on a stick about 2 feet high.
Okay, well, like a traffic light system.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And if you've switched the red light on, you just don't want to be disturbed, okay? And,
you have an amber light as well, or not?
No, you don't. You have red or green. And if you have a green light, it means you can be approached. Now, that's all very well in a workplace, but supposing the person who wants to speak to you is senior to you, in the chain of command.
Well.
Do they, and do you then say, did you not see the red light? And do they then say, I don't give a monkeys about your red light or your green light, son? I want to speak to you, and I will speak to you. When I was at the King's School, Chester, I used to often get sent to the headmaster's study,
because you were doing something wrong?
Well, funny enough, you got sent to the headmaster's study either because you'd been disruptive in class and you were sent out of the class and told to go and see the headmaster, or because I had some brilliant idea which the teacher in the class couldn't actually comprehend.
Right.
And so I had to...
In my experience, getting sent to the headmaster's office was never for a good reason.
Yeah, well, it sometimes was. But when you got there, and this was going back, to the kind of 70s, there was a red and green light system outside his door. So he would be sitting in there in some important meeting with the governors or something, and the red light would be on.
Yes.
So if you'd been sent there for disciplinary matters...
sit outside.
Well, you just didn't bother knocking, so you got away with it and said that,
what, you didn't have to sit in some ante-room?
Well, he sat outside his office, basically, but then, that class would then sort of end when the bell rang, so you get to your next class, and then later on when the teacher said, did you report to the headmaster? You said yes.
So you basically lied a double time then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then they said, and I said, well, I'm sorry, sir, I think the headmaster will discuss that with you.
Yes.
And then it all got forgotten about.
Was that how you got around it?
Yeah,
That's
of course
shocking that you used to do that at such a young age.
Yeah, well, because,
But you'd learned how the rat-like cunning world actually operates.
Absolutely. But you know what? You could expand this in life. What you could do, we could all wear like... a set of headphones or a helmet or something like that with a red light and a green light. And if I walked through this building, I didn't want you to speak to me because, they were driving me mad.
But you don't like people to speak to you anyway.
Well, I don't really, but I have the red light on all the time. And so I can't speak to you because I'm in thinking mode and I don't want you to disturb my thinking pattern.
Would you sort of hold something up, mate, perhaps?
No, you'd have it on your head. By the way,
a paddle, like the things they have on the train station.
Yeah, well, that's not bad. It's a good idea. By the way, some, person who doesn't understand said they picked me up on my comment the other night when I said communist economy has ever worked.
Yes. And they said, what about China?
It's not a communist economy.
No.
China is a communist political philosophy with a capitalist economy. It's a political philosophy of communism which they adhere to and stick to.
Yes.
And the party line has to be followed at all times. But the economy is based on capitalism very successfully.
Indeed.
So it's not a communist economy anyway.
Also, you might argue that China has been successful in the last, say, 10 or 15 years, but of late, actually, it's been struggling slightly because they haven't got the same kind of money they used to have.
Not really. There's been this, this talk about, when China sort of sneezes, the world coughs, and that usually results in iron ore problems in Australia and all that kind of stuff.
Is it the other way around?
No.
When China coughs, the world sneezes.
Not really. No, when China sneezes, there's a bit of a sort of hiccup or something like that. The rest of But
I'll tell you something funny today,
really
right?
The case, yeah.
I was in Borough Market earlier today, this afternoon.
Fine place.
Very fine place. And there's a fantastic Spanish shop that I go to called Brindisa, where they sell all sorts of great chorizo and Iberico ham and all sorts of cheeses and olives and things like that. Very nice place.
Yes.
I walked in there, right, to buy some stuff and just to stock up with some things, some lentils, a few other bits and pieces. There were some Chinese people sort of coagulating around the till.
Right.
And, having a fair old time chatting away to various people. And it's quite a small shop.
Right.
So there's only really one till point, right?
Right.
And there's 2 tills, but both of them seem to be occupied. And eventually, I was my attention was drawn to somebody who said, "Oh, could you please help this gentleman here? He's got things to buy." These people were being followed around by workers from Brindisa who were carrying huge sort of pallets of Iberico ham.
Yes.
As high as you like, maybe 12, 20 like packets high.
Yes.
And they were going 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you know how much they spent on Iberico ham?
No.
These 4 people.
No.
And it turns out they were from Hong Kong. 500 quid.
500 quid?
They bought £500 worth of Iberico ham.
How did they take them home?
Well, they're all vacuum packed, right?
No, but I mean, what container was this guy putting them into?
They were putting them
into
bags, yeah.
Yeah.
And so these guys were walking out of the place like they'd robbed it.
Right.
And they were saying to the people behind the counter, you should open a shop in Hong Kong. And they're going, yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah, good idea.
And the guys, I mean, they thought they'd never seen anything like it. The guys in the shop were saying, look, next time you come back,
come here.
Please call ahead and we will get it all ready for you.
Exactly.
And it seems as though these people were going back and selling on the black market or setting up their own shop.
No, they wouldn't sell on the black market. They'd probably be buying it for their own consumption, wouldn't they?
No. I mean, you're talking about probably. These are 50 packets of ham.
Yeah,
you're not going to eat 50 packets of ham.
All right. Well, if they were good businessmen from Hong Kong or China, where there's a lot of good businessmen, wouldn't they have bought their stuff from the source, from the wholesaler, rather than the retailer in Borough Market?
You would think so.
Maybe they thought it was so cheap because it's a market that they could do it and
but it's not, though.
Get it home.
But it's not cheap, and Iberico ham is a particularly expensive type of ham.
And not only that, there's international laws on transporting food across borders, so I wonder whether they had a problem there or not.
Well, you see, again, I'm assuming because it was vacuum packed, so you can take it onto a plane.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It was a very bizarre scene. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, yeah, I suppose it is, and I'm not knocking that. That would have been something to see. But when people come to this country from countries where consumerism is relatively new, and it is relatively new in China. Well, not Hong Kong. It's not. I agree, but people still stand back in amazement and look at our supermarkets as they do in America, and think, I don't know how you can develop an economy
you
that
can just buy everything.
And supermarket shelves.
Well, I mean, maybe they were Chinese from the sort of mainland,
exactly,
and we're going back to Hong Kong. But they seem to be saying they were from Hong Kong, and so much so that they were asking for business cards from the shop, and they were asking even the most lowly of guys who was behind the counter, please sign the business card, and this guy, and they said, please, what is your name? And this guy went, my name is Hugh, and they went H-U, and they went, no, it's not H-U. It's H-U-G-H.
That's a famous joke, isn't it? It's a famous joke about President Bush.
Can you tell that?
Well, yeah, you can, because President Bush asked his special advisor, who's a new guy running China, and the special advisor said, who? He said, yeah, that's what I asked you. He said, no, it's who. Yeah, who is it? And his name was who.
Well, it's just like who's on first.
But President Bush, the junior, George W. didn't pick up on the fact that the name was who. He kept asking who. I asked you who.
Yes. Yeah. I can imagine that would go on forever. No, these guys were like who, and he said no, H-U-G-H, and they couldn't get the G-H at all. I had no idea what was going on. Hugh. Anyway, that was my day. We are the Two Mics. Lots more coming up.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
As we mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show, and we will be mentioning between now and June the 8th, there is, of course, an election coming up, and we are guided, of course, by regulations by Ofcom as to what we can say, what we can't say.
Mm-hmm.
We can't give an opinion. We can't tell you which way to vote. We never will do that. However, we will discuss some of the big stories of the day. Porky, you've got one you want to bring to our attention.
Well, you mentioned earlier on this show that, allegations are put into place, aren't they, on both sides of an election, and Mr Corbyn has produced a policy which you say is going to, what's it, £8 billion or something?
Well, £7 billion apparently
billion,
is how much they say it's going to cost to get rid of tuition fees.
Exactly.
Even though it was Labour that brought them in 1998.
Yeah, I mean, I think the power situation is very interesting because you can throw that at both sides of the political spectrum.
You
right?
can, yes.
So what's going on is that when Ed Miliband was in charge of he proposed to introduce a legislation to cap energy prices.
Right.
This is gas and electric, okay?
Right.
Because he thought that there was a cartel going on amongst the energy companies.
Which there has been, hasn't
Which there has been, in which they were able to charge anything they wanted, and they were just spiralling, and ordinary families and businesses, by the way, because businesses used a load of power, were suffering gravely. Now, that's all very well saying that from Mr Miliband's point of view, but remember, Mr Miliband was also the guy who introduced a lot of carbon emission taxes.
Yes, well, he was the Environment Secretary, wasn't he?
He was Environment Secretary who volunteered this country to actually get to self-sufficiency in power without using fossil fuels quicker than anybody else, which meant that the carbon taxes were higher in this country than anywhere else.
And many people found themselves paying these airport taxes, which you don't pay in any other part of the world.
Well, Gordon Brown introduced that. Gordon Brown said that if you fly, you're using airline fuel, and therefore we slap a £10 on your airline ticket every time you get on an aeroplane. It was all to raise tax.
Yes.
Now, the most interesting thing about that is that, of course, Mr Miliband never became Prime Minister. He was beaten in an election by David Cameron.
Yeah.
But in the last few days, we've had the new leader of the Tory party, Mrs Theresa May, who's now obviously the Prime Minister as well, saying she's going to introduce capping energy prices. Now, when Ed Miliband introduced it, the Tories said, you cannot screw the market like that, because this is a form of old-fashioned socialism which will wreck the competitive ability of energy companies to go and find the energy in order to give it to the British people.
Yes, because all the energy companies have always been very good at saying, well, in order for us to spend money on research and development, we need money from you.
Exactly.
Which has always been a con, as far as I'm concerned.
Of course it is. Of course it's a con. So, anyway, she's now said, no, this is going to be a pledge from her. I'm going to... She hasn't so much said cap energy prices. She said she's going to curb energy prices, OK? Now, this could be a different thing. Because she's now got the option to get rid of some of those carbon taxes introduced by previous administration.
Yes.
She's not tied to them. If she gets her own government with her own majority, she doesn't then have to accord to the previous rules, which David Cameron inherited from Ed Miliband and endorsed, right? So she can now say, I can bring energy prices down by actually scrapping the carbon charge. But she can cap the price if she wants. Now, economists have warned that, if you cap prices in any area of British industry and the British market, you'll have a knock-on effect which will ruin the viability of all markets.
Well, it's like we were talking about earlier with Sophie about the whole business of agents' fees. Can you cap agents' fees? No, it's impossible.
Of course you can't. Now, the point is that another raft of economists have been writing in the last couple of days that actually the energy market is so out of control now that it won't have any effect on destabilising the investment in energy areas, because as you've just said, it actually doesn't need a lot of investment. You get energy.
And also most of it is owned abroad, isn't it now?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from France.
Most energy companies are owned in Europe.
A lot of it is actually sent to us from France via a cable. And Spain. And a lot of it is sent through pipes from Russia and the Ukraine.
I think there's only one actual power company in this country which is owned in this country.
I think
Scottish Power, I think, is owned by the Spanish. EDF, of course, is owned by the French.
That's right.
I mean, there's hardly any home ownership of any of these companies at all.
That's absolutely right. And so you've got a situation here that when this policy was introduced by the leader of the Labour Party, it was said to be divisive and old-fashioned socialism, but it's now been introduced by not only the leader of the Conservative Party, but the Tory Prime Minister, Mrs Theresa May, and is being described by those politicians who support her as innovative, necessary, and protecting the British people.
Yeah, I know,
so
ridiculous.
it just really shows you that you take any policy in any election campaign and you can spin it any way you want.
Although, do you not think as well that part of the reason that she's doing this is because, as we've learned from the papers this morning, and people are wondering how this has happened, I don't think there's any great mystery mystery about it. Somebody at a very high level in the Labour Party has leaked their manifesto, which they've been keeping very close to their chest.
Yes.
And included in all of the things that they're saying is the idea that they're going to renationalise energy and rail and Royal Mail.
Yeah.
What they're saying is that they would have at least one publicly owned supplier in every region of the country, with the government controlling the transmission and distribution grids. They also say that they might have an immediate emergency price cap of £1,000 a year.
Yes.
Now, I know people, and I'm sure you do, members of your family possibly, if you've got a big house, £1,000 a year is not going to pay for the electricity to feed that house. So you can't
electricity and gas.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, even just electricity, £1,000 a year does not go very far if you've got a big house.
No.
So they can't possibly cap it at that.
No.
How can they?
Well, they can cap it at that by telling the people who supply the energy, this is your budget.
But that's mad.
Well, of course it's mad. Of course it's mad. And that's why so many political policies which are introduced by both Labour and the Tories and the Lib Dems and UKIP and everybody else always look great on a banner, but it's when you get down to the detail.
Yes.
And that's why, you know, when politicians are put on the spot and they have to get down to the nitty-gritty, they so often fail.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting to me about this whole election that we're about to face is that everybody's walking around going, well, of course, you know, everyone knows the Tories are going to win. The pollsters are saying, you know, we've now got it right. We got it wrong over the referendum. We got it wrong over Trump. We got it wrong over the previous general election. But we've got it right now. And you do wonder whether or not actually something is going to go horribly wrong. I mean, I was watching something yesterday where Corbyn was speaking up north somewhere.
Yes.
And thousands of people out there actually saying, we've come to see this man. We think he's great. You know, we know
filled
that
half of Manchester yesterday.
We know that Corbyn's Labour Party is actually at its highest number of members of all time.
Yes.
We're also being told that there won't be enough of them to vote him in, which is possible. We're also told that Theresa May is one of the most popular prime ministers ever, which I find very hard to believe. And it's just all very weird. It feels like we're operating in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And the truth actually is out there somewhere. We don't know what it is.
Yeah. What I thought was great today was the debate about the boys' jobs and the girls' jobs inside a house. Now, that came from her appearance on the One Show.
Right. Putting the bins out and all the rest of it.
And now everybody's going... In fact, there was a huge debate today on several news programmes. You know, is this sexist? I don't think it's sexist to say that, you know, men usually look after these jobs in the house and women look after these jobs. But somebody was trying to beat up an argument that, there's no differential between... I mean, you know, there are certain things men do, like they put up shelves. And somebody said, well, why can't a woman put up a shelf? Well, she can. But women traditionally are more dexterous with things like, mending clothes that need a button on them and all that kind of stuff.
I'm the least sexist person around.
And
so is the mother of my children. But if she wants the shed cleaned out in the springtime, which is what I did last weekend, she wants me to do it.
That's right.
Not least because there's a lot of spiders in there and maybe the odd dead mouse and there's certain things that she would rather not see.
Yeah.
So I get sent in there as the kind of, the master of time, space and dimension.
Absolutely.
To clear out the shed.
Absolutely.
I've got no problem with that at all.
Absolutely
no problem.
Just get on with it. That's what I say. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
But anyway, look, when's the campaign got to go on till? Till June the 8th, right?
Well, June the 8th,
Right, now, we're going to do overnight that night, aren't we?
We are.
But
in fact, somebody asked us today.
Yes.
Because we are doing,
Will we miss the following morning show?
A whole month of June, doing mid-morning between 10 and 1.
Yeah.
We've taken it upon ourselves to volunteer to do the overnight show.
Yes.
Because we feel it's our place. We feel it is our place to do the overnight show because we do like winning awards for these things.
Yes, we do.
And we have one already for the American
election. We'd like to win another one.
And we wouldn't mind winning another one.
Yeah,
and we might win it in the guys at Talk Radio, which we'll be broadcasting on.
Could
we might win it the guys at Talk Sport.
Could do.
What's up for grabs at the moment? I don't know how you feel about this, but we may be starting the show slightly earlier because midnight is probably the time to do it. I'm not sure whether midnight or 1 o'clock.
I'm not sure whether we should do it earlier because if you remember, David Cameron got the first indication that he was going to not only win the election but get a small majority with the exit poll.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you remember, it was a very exciting hour. As soon as the poll shut at 10 o'clock, the exit poll came out. That showed the Tories with advancing with about 185 seats against Labour's 60 or something like that. And the purists on the Labour side were so convinced it was wrong, they said to Ed Miliband, no, keep writing your victory speech, don't worry, this is all wrong.
That's right.
It was old Lord Paddy Pansdown who actually...
Who said he was going to eat his hat,
I'll eat my hat if that prediction's right. And it turned out not to be right. It turned out being an underestimate.
And Alistair Campbell was on the same show, also saying it was all rubbish.
Yeah, exactly.
And that they were going to win it.
Never going to win, that kind of stuff.
Completely hopeless.
Yeah. So we've got that to come on that particular night. So, we'll start whatever time we think is fit.
Yes, indeed. Yes. The election doesn't start, basically, until our show starts.
Exactly.
I think that's what we should be saying.
Exactly.
Now, I'm sorry to tell you that there are a lot of rather disturbing images that have been posted on Twitter of you visiting the headmaster's office.
Oh, really?
Most of them involve you having to bend over.
Oh, that's disgraceful.
Shocking.
There was no corporal punishment at my school.
There wasn't mine.
So don't worry about any images of that. Send some images of MG being
used to
thrashed.
We had a discipline master who used a slipper.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, blimey. MG used to get the slipper across his backside because, of course, he was a troublesome schoolboy. Let's have some images of that, please.
Yeah, all right, calm down. This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport.
And it's in!
A diving header at the end of a 50-yard run.
From the root to the tip.
Talk Sport.
Do you come from a land down under? Women go and men wonder. Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to welcome our favourite Australian to the show, as per that particular piece of music by the Men at Work. It is, of course, Sandra Lee.
Indeed.
Sandra, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you two chaps, and I hope you and your listeners are fabulous.
We're in great shape. Thank you very much.
I can't speak for Porky, but I'm feeling particularly fabulous, I must say. He doesn't look particularly fabulous, but, he's doing his best at the great age that he's reached. Now, there's been quite a lot of excitement down in your part of the world, Sandra, not least about breastfeeding. Let's start off with that, shall we?
Yes, well, there's been a lot of excitement about this one particular story. One of our Greens politicians, Larissa Waters, has unveiled her new baby, 2 months old, in the Federal House of Parliament by breastfeeding her, with being the first woman ever to breastfeed in the Parliament, which is a staggering step, really.
It is absolutely staggering, and I don't think it's got anything to do with breastfeeding, Sandra. I think it's about, when we elect politicians to go and represent us and legislate on how the country's run, they need to be able to concentrate full-time on whatever the debate is that's going on inside that chamber. You can't do that if you're breastfeeding your child. I'm not being sexist, I'm not being, anti-breastfeeding. I'm just saying there's a time and a place for everything. And in the workplace, when important, very, very important issues which affect people's lives are being discussed, it's wrong.
Well, there are a lot of people who agree with you, and there are a lot of people who don't agree with you. And the whole thing is, too, what are the politicians doing in the House of Parliament? Is it that important?
But it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but also there are people sitting there reading, there are people sitting there operating on their phones, there are people looking at their laptops, there are people looking at iPads. I think to say that just because a woman's breastfeeding she's not concentrating is a little bit sexist.
No, it's not, because if something goes wrong with the poor child, and the poor child suddenly, develops some sort of a problem, as babies do, obviously, then it's the start of a process which has to then be developed.
You wouldn't allow it, is what you're saying?
I wouldn't allow it because I do think that it's a distraction. I think it also brings into play the whole idea of taking your children to work, In certain jobs, it just doesn't fit in with what you do. And I think we've all become a little bit too liberal, with a small L, in how we interpret a workplace.
Well, that's one argument. You wouldn't see a female surgeon taking a baby into an operating theatre, that's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
There is the argument that there's a time and place for everything, but then there's also the argument that babies, when they have to be fed, they have to be fed.
Yeah, and why? And for example, would you have a creche? I don't know whether there is a creche at the Australian Parliament building. There's certainly been talk of that in Westminster. They don't, as far as I'm aware, allow women to bring children into the chamber, and they don't allow women to breastfeed in the chamber. But they haven't yet even decided on whether there should be a creche facility at the Houses of Parliament. Whereas I think in the Scottish Parliament there is one.
There is one in the Australian Parliament as well, and this has happened. This move yesterday or earlier in the week happened as a result of another female politician wanting to get a proxy vote for a division when she had to go out to express milk for the baby, and she was called on it by the government whip, and she was quite affronted. So a debate happened, and they said, well, okay, for the first time in history, in February of last year, they changed the laws that women could bring in their babies to breastfeed, and in fact, any parent could bring their child in if they were the primary carer at that time.
Yeah, I see.
At one point, maybe Parliament already is a creche for a whole big pile of babies, if you ask my opinion.
Well, sure.
Why not bring the babies in?
Has there been an instant public opinion poll carried out on this, Sandra, to see how people feel?
Not yet, but the letters pages to all the newspapers are carrying sort of equal balance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if I was in charge of my baby, right, because for some reason his or her mother wasn't able to be in charge of the baby for one particular reason or another, maybe because she had a job as well, and I had to bring the baby in here, and I had to feed the baby from a bottle from time to time, and put the baby down and let them sleep. Are you telling me that you would ban me from doing that?
No, I wouldn't ban you from doing it. I'd ask you to make proper arrangements to make sure it didn't interfere with whatever you were doing at your workstation to make sure you could still get on with it. But as you say, it's a 50-50 sort of argument. Now, Sandra, I wanted to ask you about something which I hope we notified you about earlier. Life on Earth started millions of years earlier than thought. 3.48 billion-year-old fossils have been found in Pilbara, Australia. It has been confirmed.
Did they have any bows and arrows?
I don't know, but did you know your people had been around 3.48 billion years longer than you thought?
Well, that was news to me when you told me, and in this fabulous rock formation in the Pilbara, as we pronounce it.
Yes.
And but all good things start in Australia. You have to admit that.
Yeah, but is Pilbara then?
I don't think is really what you mean. Is it?
No. Is Pilbara some?
You're not going to spend some more time agreeing with.
Sorry. Is Pilbara some kind of native sort of I don't know, burial place or something like that, or some holy sanctuary?
No, it's if you live there, I think you would probably say that. But it's in Western Australia, and it's dry and it's deserty and it's rocky. Yeah. And it was the microbes were found in fossilized rock, which the scientists believe, were began life in a hot water spring on land as opposed to in the ocean, which is what the previous theories about the beginning of life are.
Yeah, that's an awful long time ago, isn't it? When I visited Western Australia and somebody took me on a tour of the iron ore fields, which is probably the worst sort of... Exactly, yeah. Probably the worst sort of tour you can go on.
Did they not know that all you were interested in was being given a tour of the wine region?
Well, we'd done Perth and all that, and they said, I think we'll get out today and see a bit of the real Australia, And this crazy woman who was big into sort of, archaeology and all that, kept telling me that valley you're looking down into is between 300 and 400 million years old. And though that was fascinating, it didn't really register to me. There was nothing happening in the valley. So I knew there was a lot of sort of old-aged stuff in Western Australia, but not billions of years. But it's nice to know that you were the cradle of civilization. We always thought it was somewhere in
it was meant to be in Africa,
Euphrates,
actually.
Wasn't it?
Well, it was meant to be in Africa, the cradle of civilization.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, actually, what about this story which I spotted earlier in the week, Sandra, about Labour's advert, which is called Australia First? Which seems to have caused a few problems as well. Featured a group of people who were almost entirely white. Now, this has upset some people as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's upset just about everybody of every political stripe you could imagine. And the Labor Party put out this advertisement saying, we build Australian first, we buy Australian first, and we employ Australians first. And it's trying to knock down a visa, the 457 visas, which bring in skilled labour. Right. But the problem with it was that given that Australia is a land of immigrants, nearly 30% of our residents are born overseas, most of them born in the United Kingdom, by the way. But in the ad, there are 12 white people and only one of them is Asian. All the others are purely Caucasian. So it's kind of like, is this bringing back Labor Party's old white Australia policy? So the deputy opposition leader who stands front and centre in it and is, spruiking, we buy Australian first, we employ Australian first. Initially, he said when he was called on it, where's the diversity? He said, I don't think there's any problem with this. And then within hours, it was pulled from, you can see the staff being pulled from the side of the stage, and it went off.
A shocking thing to happen. Now, I've got another shocking report here, Sam. This is going to shock you because you are a demure lady. But it's written by Demure.
I've never described Sandra as demure.
I mean, there's a guy in Australia. He's the Australian correspondent for the Times. the London Times, and his name is Bernard Lagan, and he writes about all sorts of issues. But he's found this story in New Zealand so important, he's had to write about it, and he fears it might come to the shores of Australia. And it's about the fact that protesters in New Zealand amazingly now go around hurling dildos at...
What?
Yeah.
It's a family show.
I know. No, honest to God. They hurl dildos at politicians they don't like with their names written on them.
Not a bad idea, to be fair.
No. It says a former minister in New Zealand who hit 2 protesters with his car has been cleared of careless driving after claiming he was getting away from a scene to protect the Deputy Prime Minister who was being attacked with a sex toy. Chester Burrows, the MP for Wanganui, encountered a demonstration in his North Island constituency on March 22nd. The court heard it has become popular for protest groups to throw sex toys at politicians. And last year, Stephen Joyce, the Minister for Economic Development, was hit full in the face by a flying dildo. Now,
it's about the most exciting thing that's ever happened in New Zealand, isn't it?
Well, exactly. They don't have a lot of fun in New Zealand normally. So now this is something clearly which must be shocking to you in the Southern Hemisphere.
It's hilarious, and I hope it doesn't come here.
Yeah.
I do believe that type of protest began in America on university campuses,
right,
when students would protest against sexual harassment by throwing
I see.
those things. I can't even bring myself to say the word.
No, of course not. Yeah, I know.
Maybe you are more demure than I thought you were.
Yeah, exactly. But, this is something which, I mean, if it's happening in the Southern Hemisphere, it could soon come to the Northern Hemisphere. I'm not sure we want it up here.
No, we don't want it here.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely shocking.
Exactly.
Now, I mean, just going back to the Australia First scenario, and you said that most of the immigrants in Australia are sort of eventually coming from these shores in the UK. Is that still the case, though? Because, I mean, it's now not as easy as it used to be for British citizens to get into Australia and live, is it?
Well, it's not as easy for anybody to get into Australia now. You've got to, they've got so many visas that you have to jump through a lot of hoops. But the last census figures that came out in June of last year, so 2016, it said that the majority of our immigrants were from the United Kingdom and the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man, followed by New Zealand. And then the next in order were China, India, and the Philippines.
Yeah.
And but it was nearly 2 million people from the UK as opposed to 600,000 from New Zealand. So the numbers are staggeringly, overwhelmingly UK. Brits.
Yeah. That is amazing. But I think the older you get in this country now and you think to yourself, retirement in Australia, you do have to pay a huge premium now to get in, don't you? I think somebody of sort of the age of about 60 has to come up with about £250,000 English pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. I know somebody in this country who was thinking about it, and they said they were going to have to pay £236,000 for him and his wife to go and settle in Australia.
Don't you just have to prove that you've got means as opposed to actually paying an amount of money?
Well, not that, but you're not being productive to the Australian economy if you go there to retire. If you see what I mean, if you've got a skill, Sandra, which is necessary in Australia, then obviously you've got something to add to the community. But you just go in there and basically you would only use the health service and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's probably what that money is for, just to protect them from sort of, going on welfare and having their medical insurance covered.
Exactly, yeah. No, absolutely, I'm sure it is.
Sounds a bit shocking, because if we're supposed to be coming out there to do a live show, are we going to have to pay some kind of fee in order to make sure that if your heart gives out while we're over there, that, we're going to have to sort of guarantee £1 million to the local health service?
Well, not really.
To make sure you don't have to have somebody save your life.
No, because the sort of people who follow us around to these overseas shows drink so much they'd have to open another vineyard somewhere in Australia.
True,
to cater
very
with them.
true. By the way, Sandra, I did mention this to you earlier on, but we are doing a show in New York in September. We'd be delighted if you come and join us there and maybe make a little appearance on the stage.
Well, I would love to do that. I'll have to have a chat with my husband and see what we can do.
But don't bother bringing him.
That would be brilliant.
Don't bother bringing him. Just come on your own. He can't afford it.
Honestly, Sandra, he hasn't changed from his alley cat lifestyle all these years, I tell you.
Listen, I'm not the one that tried to seduce the lovely Sandra, but anyway, that's another story.
Excuse me.
Well, thank you very much indeed, as ever, Sandra. Have a lovely weekend. We shall talk to you very soon. Becky, who lives in New Zealand, is saying this: I'm off out protesting. Hopefully people will throw some dildos and sex toys at me. It's cheaper than Anne's summer's shopping.
For goodness sake,
that's what
please,
she said.
This is a family show.
This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
When I need you, I just close my eyes and I'm with you. And all that I so wanna give you, it's only a heartbeat away.
There's an awful lot of tweets here, which I can't really read any of them out.
I know.
With regard to
the sex toys.
The sex toy throwing.
And we'll just call it sex toys.
Hurling, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we probably shouldn't really mention
well,
that anymore.
it's, I mean,
I can't believe you brought that up.
Well, you can't ignore these things.
Shocking
You can't ignore these things. It's written by the correspondent of the Thunderer in Australia and New Zealand, and if it's good enough for the Times, it's good enough for the Two Mics, okay?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Good.
Now, how about this one, though, from Harry, who says, has Porky decided what subject he wants to get 1 out of 10 on in the quiz this week?
We have.
I think we're going to do one of those Trivial Pursuit
We're doing
jobs,
Trivial Pursuit one this week because we like to do that 1 in 4, and this is the 4th one, and it gives me an opportunity to flex my intellectual muscles.
Not inconsiderable muscles.
Yeah, in the knowledge that MG has probably not been able to gerrymander the questions. Okay,
well, as I never have at all, and so basically it will be a general knowledge quiz. Based on randomly selected questions.
That's right.
On a colour-coded Trivial Pursuit.
Yes.
And normally it's 12, isn't it, rather than 10?
It is, it's 12,
And we will film it and it will go out on Facebook Live.
That's right.
As indeed will our show be filmed live and put out on Facebook from New York City.
Yes.
So you need to go on the twomics.co.uk
That's right.
and make sure that you subscribe to it, because only people who subscribe will be able to see it. And it will be the only place you can see it, short of actually being there live.
That's right, absolutely right. Now, a guy called Ouija, and, it is a very delicate subject we've just covered.
Yeah.
He says, Porky, when talking of dildo throwing, I suggest in future...
I thought we weren't going to mention this.
No, we're not going to mention it. He said, I suggest in future you don't come out with statements like, we don't want it up here. I'm sorry, but
there are several worse ones, actually, than that.
That was a very unfortunate
which we can't
expression.
do. We've
decided we're not going to talk about this anymore.
We can't do it anymore.
That song that we just played...
Yeah, wasn't that Leo Sayer?
It was Leo Sayer.
Yeah.
Now, Leo Sayer had a few hits, but not too many. He had one-man band... I'm a one-man band.
Yes, that was a good one. I remember that, yeah.
And then the second one was that one, When I Need You.
When I Need You,
but then the third one was Make Me Feel Like Dancing.
I think that was the most famous one, wasn't it?
Well, I think that was the most popular one.
Probably
but no, his first one, One-Man Band, became a hit. Now, you probably forgot about Leo Sayer, but he was very famous at one time.
Yeah.
And he tells...
I remember his very curly hair.
Very curly hair. He's going back on the road after years of not doing it. He's touring in the UK. And as a consequence, he's been talking. But, he does tell, quite a remarkable story about his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he was taken on by Adam Faith.
Yeah.
Adam Faith himself was a singer.
I remember Adam Faith, yeah. He ended up being a sort of financial advisor, didn't he?
Well, this is the whole point, actually, of part of his story. Adam Faith was, first of all, a singer.
Yes.
And then he became a businessman. Yeah. And then he became an actor in a series called Budgie.
Budgie, yes.
In which he was a sort of fly boy in Soho.
Yeah, he was a kind of a sort of Del Boy type figure,
and all that kind of stuff, but anyway, old Leo Sayer says, life became mad. My first manager, the singer actor Adam Faith, left me penniless, and I battled with the traditional temptations. I sampled almost every drug apart from heroin, but none of them really did anything for me. You try a drug, you have either a good or a bad experience, but all my experiences were bad, so I left them alone quite a few years ago.
Yes.
But then he goes on to say that the dealings with Adam Faith are quite extraordinary. He said, I became so famous that I moved over to Los Angeles for a while.
Right.
I had #1 hits on both sides of the Atlantic. He said, and I hung out with people like the Beatles and other very high-flying people.
Yeah.
He said he was dating a publisher. Hang on. Yeah, he was dating a publisher.
What, in America?
Yes, in America, who worked for Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
And one day she rang up and she said, I'm coming home in a limo. She said, get to the front gate and greet me. And when he got there, Steven Spielberg got out the car.
Right.
It was at the height of his fame.
Right.
He was making films like E.T. and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And he said, I can't believe it, you're Steven Spielberg. He said, yeah, I just make movies behind the scenes. He says, you're the real star.
No.
You know, you're Leo Sayer. He said, your mind's blown by doing things like that.
That's surprising, Nick, because you never have thought of Leo Sayer as a big name in America, really, would you?
Well...
He's very much a sort of singles charts hit guy in this country.
Yeah, but they can have bursts of 18 months. I tell you, the other guy who was very famous in America, and I remember interviewing him over here and thinking he was a complete half-baked, was the guy who sang, a good heart and a hard heart
a good heart is hard to find.
Yeah, Irish guy.
Yeah.
From the
Feargal Sharkey.
For the Pogues, was he?
No, he was the Undertones.
The Undertones, Feargal Sharkey.
I interviewed him as well. I thought he was a really nice guy, actually.
Well, when I interviewed him...
Teenage Kicks and all that.
Yeah. Well, actually, funny enough, when I interviewed him, we had to go and find him in his North London house because he just got to number one, with this good heart.
Good heart these days is hard to find.
And it wasn't...
We should play that. It's a good song.
Yeah, but it wasn't difficult to find his house because when you were 2 streets away, you could hear this song...
Yeah.
Like blaring out, and you thought, who's playing that? And then we got another street, and it got louder, and then went into the street.
He was playing his own song.
And he had all the windows open in his house.
Oh, well.
He had all the windows open.
Maybe you knew it would help you find it.
And he was playing it at a huge volume. So, and I wasn't the only one who was there because it wasn't difficult to find him.
Yes.
So there was myself, the guy from the Mail and the Mirror. So we knocked on his door, and his eyes were wild. I think he'd been up all night. I think.
Well, do you know he became a very sort of respectable member of the musicians' union, if you like.
Oh yeah.
And he's now the guy who sort of negotiates on behalf of the musicians' union.
Oh, he got into sociology and all sorts of things, psychology and all that kind of stuff.
Was he not from Derry or something like that?
No, he was from Dublin. Because
Are you sure?
Yeah,
you sure he wasn't a Belfast boy? I thought he was from the north.
Well, I'll tell you the story. So he opens the door, and he's wild, I said, "Oh, hello, Ferg, can we have a word with you?" "No, I'm having my breakfast, and all this kind of stuff."
Right.
And I said, "Oh." So to get an in with him, I waited till the others had gone away, and I said, "Actually, Fergal, I'm, a family sort of member almost." He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I was over in Ireland for a year, on the Mountbatten murder and all that kind of stuff, and I said, I worked very closely with your brother David."
Right.
He says, "David." I said, "Yeah."
David Sharkey.
Yeah, David Sharkey. He was on the...
I'm sure he's from the north, though, right? He must be from the north.
Well, no, but this was in Dublin, and this was working for the Irish Press.
Right.
And David was a hotshot reporter on there, and I'd worked with him.
Yeah.
And he said, "He's the editor." And I knew he wasn't, I think he'd become news editor, but Fergal got all this wrong,
Uh-huh.
And I said, he and I are very good mates. He said, "Really?" Yeah, he said, "Well, I'm not keen on my brother," and slammed the door in my face or something like that.
So that didn't help then.
But anyway, getting back to Leo, so he does all this, and then he said, after the spectacular rise came the fall, in the mid-'80s, all the hits dried up, my business affairs soured, and I split from my wife Janice because she didn't really just want to be Mrs. Leo
Was
Sayer.
she the publisher woman who knew Steven Spielberg?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be just Mrs. Leo Sayer. It wasn't her thing, and my career was collapsing. She said, my relationship with Adam Faith hit the buffers. When I signed with Faith in 1973, the first thing he did was take me to a brothel. I was a young man who'd never been into that sort of place before. I was an innocent young boy, and he wanted to make a man of me.
Shocking.
Yeah, he said Adam's values weren't like everybody else's. 20 years later, having lost many, many millions through Adam's Faith's...
He did lose... Adam Faith lost a lot of money.
Well, I'd say, through Adam Faith's dodgy dealings, I tried to sue for mismanagement, but there wasn't any money left.
No.
And we had to eventually settle out of court.
Yes, that's right.
When Adam offered me a deal, it included a power of attorney. Basically, he owned me and my life for the first 15 years that I was an artist. I never looked at the books. I'm sure I could have been a very rich man, but I'm not. I'm a poor man.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. Somebody called G. Shaw has said, Leo Sayer, More Than I Can Say, another song, Moonlighting, Long Tall Glasses, and many more. He did have quite a few hits.
He did.
And funnily enough, he's also been, for me anyway, particularly sort of, remembered because his name was synonymous with a bit of Cockney rhyming slang, which was introduced to me by a young woman I used to know. And Leo Sayer was known as an all-dayer. So basically, you'd be going out for a Leo Sayer.
Oh, really?
And you'd just be out drinking all day.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's quite good. Yeah, I quite like that. Yeah.
And I then introduced the all-nighter as a Felix Leiter.
Yeah. Oh.
Felix Leiter being the James Bond
character.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah, good one. That. Yeah, I see. Like that? Now then, what I was going to say is...
I realise that you have no interest in anything I say.
No, I did. I thought it was good.
I like a Leo Sayer. We haven't been on one for a while.
No, I was about to say, do you remember when Kate Bush came back after 2 decades of not being on the road?
Yes, and that was last year, was it?
And her shows were sold out like a million times over.
Incredible, yeah.
Do you think there will be a great response to Leo Sayer being back on the road?
Not in the same way.
Neither do I.
Because I think there will be people of a certain age who remember him.
Yeah.
But also, he's not that... Yeah. I mean... His music's very catchy and all that, but he doesn't have the same mystique as Kate Bush. Yeah. People who like Kate Bush think she's a genius.
Yeah, that's right. He's gone off his rocker. He says, I now avoid alcohol, caffeine and milk and I prefer ginger supplements, peppermint tea.
Great.
That's all I ever...
Good luck to you, Leo.
...induce.
Talk sport.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a few little announcements to do. Got some texts and tweets over the course of the last 24 hours. Right. But this is good from Danny in Slough, who says he's got a bit of useless information.
Right.
Leo Sayer was apparently the last person to speak to Elvis.
Really?
I don't know why that would be.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know whether he was in Graceland before Elvis passed on, but apparently that was the case.
Wow.
Richard says this, any chance of a shout-out, please, for my lad Dan, who is 7 on Thursday. He loves the podcast, especially Postman Pork.
Okay.
He says he's even referring to his present opening as Postman Dan.
Postman Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the name of the young lad?
The lad's name is Dan.
Oh, Dan, okay, and he's 7?
He's 7.
Okay, Dan, you're 7. It's your birthday. Have a great day, my boy, and have a great life.
Yes.
And thank you for listening. We love to have you aboard.
And this one is from Mark, who says, hi, guys. Would you and Mike Parry please welcome my newborn daughter, Molly Jean Filmer, into the world on the show tonight? Molly Jean.
Molly Jean. What
Goodbye,
a lovely name.
Molly Jean.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, what a lovely name that is. And yes, we do welcome you into the world. I hope you have a long and fruitful life.
Yes.
And when your ears develop enough to be able to take inaudible sounds, I hope your parents will play our dulcet tones to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one from Sayo, who says, can you give my mates Samuel Lowndes and Sathavan Krishnan a shout-out on the show today as they turn 14.
What's the name?
Next month. One's called Samuel.
Yeah.
And the other one is Sathavan.
Right, Samuel and Sathavan.
Yes.
Are they twins?
I don't think they're related, because one's called Samuel Lowndes,
right,
and the other is Sathavan Krishnan. So
okay.
I suspect they're two 14-years-olds who are just mates.
Two 14-years-olds who are mates. You had birthday on the same day.
Apparently so.
Well, very happy birthday to you both.
Yeah.
And you will obviously develop and grow into fine young men whose life dictum will be dictated by the policies you hear on the Two Mike Show.
Okay, and one final one from Paul, who says, it's Mother's Day in Australia on Sunday. Can you please wish my partner a happy day, and we'll listen to your podcast on Sunday. Her name is Pia.
Mother's Day on Sunday in Australia?
Apparently so.
Pia, have a great Mother's Day. I hope your family make a tremendous fuss of you, okay?
Do you remember Pia Zadora? She's the only person I remember called Pia. She was a very short woman who was married to some very eccentric old rich billionaire.
Pia
Zadora.
Pia Zadora.
Yeah.
I do remember. She a small blonde-haired
very
lady.
small.
Yeah, I remember,
I think she was a sort of fledgling actress of some kind, and she was married to a very wealthy businessman.
She wear very high heels as well.
She did, because she was tiny. She was about 4'8" or something.
Is that right?
I think so,
yeah, she was, yeah. Right, it says here from Kev, Leo Sayer's best stuff was recorded by Roger Daltrey as an album called Daltrey, included one-man band and giving it all away. Oh, well, I mean, that's...
I remember those songs, yeah.
Yeah, you do?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
Do you remember McVicker? Do you remember the movie that Roger Daltrey starred in? John McVicker.
Yeah, I remember the opening to it. The opening to it
Free Me.
Were 6 prison officers opened the door to his cell and said, now, come on, John, just come out gently, don't... Yeah. And that's when he was a wild animal criminal.
Right.
And the film was all about how he suddenly morphed into, the deep-thinking, psychological... reformed con, the
man who was going to tell everybody how to make criminals behave better.
Is he still alive, McVicker? I don't think he is. Is he?
I think. I couldn't tell you, but
because
I think
if you spoke to the crime correspondents in Fleet Street, they used to speak to the policeman always called McVicker the leopard, and the reason being was that they still thought he had extreme criminal tendencies.
Yes.
He was a very violent man.
He was.
And that a leopard never changes its spots.
Yes.
That's why they called him the leopard.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Luke says, is Porky comparing Kate Bush to Leo Sayer? Kate Bush is iconic. Leo Sayer was in Big Brother and made a right show of himself. I don't remember him being in Big Brother.
No, I don't, but apparently there was some reference to that in the pieces I read that he didn't do himself any good.
Right.
He also had a partial kneecap replacement, so that doesn't help in life because then you're crippled for the rest of your life.
Well, indeed. Gift Gaff says, Leo Sayer and ITV News recalled receiving a call from Elvis inviting him to meet the King the next day.
Oh, really?
But sadly, Elvis died that morning. So he must have had a call.
Oh, I see.
So he's the Porky Jinx here. The Leo Jinx. He gets a call from Elvis to say, come and meet me. And then, unfortunately, he turns up at Graceland the next morning. He's already dead.
Yeah. Hey, Leo. Why didn't you get over to Gracelands, Leo? Let's cut a disc. See you later, Leo.
Yeah.
And then when he arrives and knocks on the door, says, I've come to see Elvis. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Well, what's the problem? Well, he sort of keeled over and died in the loo this morning.
Passed away.
Yeah.
Shocking, really. Now, here's an interesting story for you. Now, would you have thought, in any point in your life at this stage of it, that there would still be such a thing as a pager? Do you remember when everybody had a pager?
Well, do you know what the first pager I had? When I was working for the Birmingham Mail in London, there were no mobile phones in those days.
No, there weren't.
But they were so anxious to get hold of me at all times.
Well, everyone had a pager, didn't they?
I was issued with a pager in my top pocket.
Yes.
And a red light flashed and it emitted noises.
Did it vibrate as well?
I think it did vibrate as well. Then you had to go and find a payphone and then ring HQ.
Yes. A lot of people had the one that you clipped onto your belt.
That's right, yeah, and it vibrated. Yeah.
Right, and apparently Vodafone used to run the company that I mean, even up until right now, still had a company that ran these pagers, right? And apparently there was something like 61 million of them in use in 1994.
Wow.
Can you imagine that around the world?
1994? Well, hang on, 94? We all had mobile phones by then, didn't we?
Not really. It was beginning to happen.
Well, okay.
Because I remember my first mobile phone was given to me when I came back to London in 92.
Right, yeah.
It was that big brick thing,
That's right,
Nokia, which was pretty awful. I mean, it didn't really have... And most of the reporters that I worked with in those days still had a pager because the pager was much more reliable way of getting hold of someone, you know?
Yeah.
But apparently, right, Vodafone have been trying to sell their pager business to a company called Capita and a company inside Capita called Page One, which was one of its only rivals because apparently some people still use them.
Right.
But they've been told that they're not allowed to sell it to them because they wouldn't. The watchdog won't approve the sale
because of monopoly,
something like that. So they're going to have to put the company out of business.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, who's still got a pager? Is that a contemporary story?
Yeah, it's in the paper this morning. I don't think of anybody. I can't think of anyone that I've seen that's still got a pager.
I don't either.
But apparently Vodafone has got 1,000 pager customers.
Is that all?
That's all. But they're not allowed to sell the 1,000 pager customers' accounts to this other company, so they're going to have to shut it down.
A pager would cost you about, what, £20 a month?
I guess. I don't know. No idea.
Well, they've got 1,000 customers.
I never actually had one,
so
to be honest.
That's 20,000.
Yeah.
And who's it owned by again?
Vodafone. Vodafone's
market capitalisation is about 63 billion.
Exactly.
Why would they worry about 20 grand a year?
I couldn't tell you that.
No.
But all it says here is that Vodafone wanted to sell its pager business to Capita's Page One, its only rival, but the Competition and Markets Authority watchdog refused to approve the sale.
Right.
Vodafone are now saying that they're very disappointed. It seems a surprising decision considering that this market has been contracting for some time and no other country in Europe has more than one wide area paging network.
Very odd.
It's really weird, isn't it?
Very odd. Listen, I'm going to show you two pictures which prove that climate change is a cyclical thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that the world isn't burning up or freezing up and the ice blocks are not melting.
Okay.
A beach that was washed away 33 years ago has reappeared.
Oh.
Now, the beach is near the Irish village of Duarg.
Duarg?
Yeah.
Where's that?
On Achill Island. I don't know where that is.
Is that off the? Must be. There's not too many islands off the coast of Ireland, are there?
Oh, there are loads on the west coast. Yeah, there are.
Are there?
Yeah, there are. Yeah. So anyway, the beach. So with only rock pools left behind, almost all the hotels and cafes in the area, which had thrived for decades, shut down.
Right.
But a freak tide last month dumped hundreds of thousands of tons of sand back onto the area that used to be the beach, and has recreated a 1,000-foot-long beach.
Right.
A bar owner who stayed throughout the decades of the bad years, Alan Gealty, said, "It's a miracle. I can't understand how, but it's great. We have had plenty more visitors." I'll show you the two pictures.
So what? So basically the sand was all washed away.
Yes.
Before Easter.
No, the sand was washed away 20 years ago.
Oh, I see. But the picture
just disappeared.
The picture I'm looking at shows before Easter there's no sand, and now suddenly there is sand.
Yes.
How bizarre.
Hundreds of thousands of tons of sand were suddenly washed up by the tide again.
I suppose the problem is that could just as easily happen in reverse again over the next time.
Yeah, but apparently, according to the experts, it's a cyclical thing. Do you see what I mean? If it goes again, it won't go for another 20 or 25 years.
Right.
And now they've got a beach again, and now all the hotels and the bars and all that, and the cafes are all reopening, and it's a miracle.
But you're a man that knows a bit about these kind of investments. I mean, if somebody came to you and said, let's open a hotel on this beach that's just reappeared, even though it might disappear again in 20 years, wouldn't you say, actually, that's probably not one of the great ideas?
Well, I think if it was only for you and not for your family, and it was a short-term investment, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit like that, that blinking airport that we've opened on...
the one that's finally got a plane landing on it.
got a plane landing on it. Everybody went and opened hotels once we built the airport, except now the airplanes can't land.
True.
That's a bad investment. This will be a good one.
Yeah, OK. All right, well, we'll talk some more about that. And indeed, we should mention Donald Trump, because we got into this last night, and the reverberations are still going on. Because, of course, the two mics take these stories and everybody else follows on later.
That's right.
This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one.
Interestingly enough, Eric Burdon and the Animals have played at the City Winery.
Have they?
Yeah.
What, where we're going to
Where
in
we're
September?
going to play in New York, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. The reason we're playing that is he's 76 today.
Who, Eric Burdon?
Eric Burdon.
Is he?
Yeah, he's still alive.
Right.
House of the Rising Sun, that was the Animals. They were a Geordie group, by the way, from Newcastle.
Well, I know I remember Alan Price was a Geordie.
That's right.
I was at a party once, right? I'm sure I told you this story, which was a party run by Bill Haggerty.
Oh, yes.
Who was the old Sunday Mirror, Daily Mirror sort of guy, right?
Yeah.
And this was before...
He was editor of the Sunday Mirror.
He was editor of the Sunday Mirror, yeah, and he had this lovely house, probably still does, Strand on the Green, out by Kew there, right?
That's right, yeah.
And it used to get flooded on a regular basis. Not actually flooded, but the tide, the river would come up to the point where his house was actually underwater.
Right.
And you'd stand in the kitchen and you could look out and see underneath the level of the river.
Yeah, I see, yeah.
Which was amazing. Anyway, this was at the beginning of the whole kind of project, the new Labour project.
Right, OK.
So Alistair Campbell was there, Neil Kinnock was there, Peter Mandelson was there, and Tony Blair was there.
Right.
And this was way before they ever became very sort of powerful and famous. And bizarrely, Alan Price was there. And I was there with my now ex-wife, who was, not particularly enamoured by any of this.
Exactly,
Didn't really know who any of these people were.
Yeah.
Got introduced to Alan Price and said, "Oh, isn't that great that you share the same name as that famous piano player from the Animals?"
Yeah.
And he went, "No, I am the famous piano player from the Animals."
Really?
Yeah.
What, she was that unaware of the company she was in?
She didn't know it was him.
Amazing.
And he was a really nice bloke, actually.
He was. Well, he went on his own, didn't he?
Yeah.
He made that famous song, Who Would Have Thought a Man and Bear Would Be Welcomed.
That's right, it was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
With Simon Smith and his amazing dancing
Amazing
bear.
that you remember the words to that.
Yeah.
I have an album of his called Between Today and Yesterday.
Yes.
Which is really good, actually. But it's little known, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
But for a long time he worked with Georgie Fame, didn't he?
Oh, of course he did.
Alan Price
Georgie and the Blue
Fame.
Flames
Yeah.
and Alan Price. But Alan Price became very bitter about the way the music industry treated him and wrote a song about it. And I remember the words to that as well.
Right.
My name is Little Alan Price.
Yes.
I've tried to be nice all of my life.
Yes.
But I have to say, so far it hasn't worked.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yes, that's amazing that you remember all that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all coming back to me.
But anyway, Eric Burdon,
Yeah.
the fond memory I have of him is when we were knocking around, I think it was in Nottingham actually, at the University of Trent. We went to a concert, starring the Animals, who were then past their best, obviously, because they were big in the 60s and this was the 70s. Right. He came on the stage and his opening gambit was, "Beer and acid will save the world!" And that was it. That was it.
Beer and acid.
Sung a few songs, then
Not
disappeared.
necessarily in that order.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about Nottingham, by the way.
Yes.
I've told you, haven't I, that during my time there, I spent quite a lot of time in an establishment called Ye Old Trip to Jerusalem.
Yes, you have mentioned it many times.
A fantastic pub.
Is it not sort of forged into the wall or something like that?
It is built into the walls of Nottingham Castle. You're
There you
absolutely
go.
right.
Yeah.
And it's not a particularly big pub, but it's said to be the oldest pub in England, and it's called the Old Trip to Jerusalem because it's where the Crusades started.
Where they headed off from.
They all gathered there, got tanked up, and then thought it was a good idea to go and invade Jerusalem.
Right.
The only problem was, if you did that these days, it would take a few hours to get to Jerusalem. In those days, it took a few months. So by the time they got there, usually they thought that wasn't such a good idea.
Also,
you'd
probably now have to embark upon a sort of slightly more military aspects than you would in those days.
Yeah, exactly.
They had very good defences.
Yeah, and of course, when they got to Jerusalem, they found that it was pretty hot out there.
Yes.
It was dry. There was no water. People were dying of disease and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Never turned out well, the Crusades.
They never did.
But anyway, the point of the story is it might close down because of this business rate row. You know, hundreds of small British companies are going to be, bunged higher rates.
Oh, what, you mean the pub's going to close down?
Well, that's what they're saying.
Really?
They're saying,
You better get up there and save it.
Exactly. The government's saying 90% of buildings which are being re-rated, their rates will go down.
Right.
But 10% of them will go up. Well, what the businesses are saying is that the 10% that are going up are going up massively.
See, that's the bit I can never understand.
And it will put them out of business.
Well, why is it 90% will go down?
I don't know.
And 10% will go up?
I don't know.
Well, you should find out.
Well, it says here, business owners facing large bills after the revaluation of business rates said they've been trying to appeal against the charges, but they were getting nowhere because a computer system was crashing or blocking their attempts to lodge an appeal, and it's now become a huge issue with the government because there's a glitch in the supercomputer system. But the problem is, it means that those who've been bunged these huge rate increases are not getting the opportunity to appeal against them. So it says here, while the Palace of Westminster's business rates bill, that's the Houses of Parliament, the famous Houses of Parliament, cut their own bill by £140,000.
That's nice.
Historic buildings in this country, for example, the old trip to Jerusalem, their business rates could rise from 36,000 to 67,000.
Really?
So that's nearly double.
That's nearly double.
Nearly double.
That's mad.
And that means you've got to find like another £1,000 a week.
Yeah. So let's see. So 36,000 is about what, 3,000 a month, right?
That's
so
right.
67,000. You're talking another
£5.50 a month.
That's crazy.
I know. It's outrageous.
How can they justify that?
Yeah, I don't know.
And isn't that the purview of the local authority rather than the actual national government?
It is, but it's a national government policy that all local authorities have to do the revaluations, you know? Shocking. Yeah, it is absolutely shocking. And
maybe we should go up there and do some kind of fundraiser for them.
Well, I totally agree. You see, I think business rates are a scandal because already... I was in my hairdresser's the other day.
Were you?
Right? Now, 80%...
What are you doing in there?
Having my hair done.
Oh, right.
Because
doesn't look like it.
We're on telly on Monday morning.
Doesn't look like it.
You told the audience that...
I think we may have mentioned that we're going to be on Sky, yes.
Tune in, please, to Sky News on Monday morning.
Yes.
MG and I are reprising what we did a couple of months ago. And we'll be doing it at 6:30, 20 to 8 and 20 to 9.
Yeah, I think it's like 5... Is it not 5:40, 6:40 and 7:40?
No, because the programme starts at 6. It's 6:30.
6:30.
7:40 and 8:40, OK. Right. And we had a great time there last time.
We
Sarah
did.
Jane, me.
Yeah.
And
Jackie Beltrow.
Jackie Beltrow, who's a lovely
Jackie.
lady.
Yeah,
terrific lady. And in fact, we have decided to take them a free copy of our last live show, haven't we, this time?
Have we?
Yes, we have.
I didn't know we
Yeah, we
decided to
have.
do that.
Yeah. We're going to sign
Is
it
that
for
wise?
Yeah, it's very wise.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, in order to...
Have you got one, by the way?
I've got one.
Have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll find. I'll get one.
All
I'll get one from our distributors. I'm going to our distributors tomorrow. Crikey,
you've done with your chair.
Yes, no, it just collapsed. Sorry about that.
Somebody shot you.
Yeah, it did. It was like somebody shot me. Sorry, I'll tell you what happened. The back suddenly sprung up and hit me in the back. It's quite
That
a
was
shock.
quite worrying.
It was
that.
quite a shock.
Anyway, listen. That's a good. Why don't you take some T-shirts as well?
Yeah, I'll take T-shirts as well. But I have to go to our distributors tomorrow because my new batch of Porky posters, wall size, have arrived.
Porky posters?
Yeah, Porky posters.
What size are these?
They're wall size for the Porky Scratchings promotion.
Well, life size, you mean?
Yeah, we're having a Porky Scratchings promotion in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, in July.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. In fact, I've invited you already.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
July the 8th. You're coming, aren't you?
Well,
with your family.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I hope I'd like you to show a bit more enthusiasm for it,
well,
okay?
I mean, this is something that you do on your own. It's nothing to do with me. I have to check with my family whether they're available.
Well, check with your family.
My children have got play dates now that they do. I mean, I go down to my kids at the weekend,
This is at 6:30 in the evening, okay? So I'm sure you can get there by then.
Well, I don't know what they're doing.
It's only around the M25, I'm
not interested in where it is,
You're a hovel in a field, get up onto the M25, get round to Stockbroker Belt.
We've got better things to do than come hang around a pub on a Saturday night.
No,
that's not what we do.
No, this is a promotion. It's in your interest to do it. I might even cut you in on a bit of the old
Porky
cut me in
on it.
Parry Scratchings fortune.
Yeah, it's called the two mics, But there's no mention of the 2 Mikes on the Porky Scratchings packets, as I keep telling you.
You know, the whole...
There's no mention of it.
The whole thing started
if somebody came down from Mars and picked a packet of Porky Scratchings off the wall in the pub and said, I'd quite like to try some of these.
Yes.
Nowhere on the packet does it say the 2 Mikes.
Well, where in your name is the word Porky?
Well, all I'm saying is it's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, it's got everything to do with you because I've told you already that, you know, when it's been sold in every pub in this country, and my face is more famous than...
But the only reason
Captain
that you're
Webb,
famous is because we are part of the 2 Mikes.
Yeah, but my name is Porky, you see.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, though.
So
everything you've done on your own has been an unmitigated failure.
If somebody makes a snack called...
I'm not interested in having a snack named after me.
MG Munchies.
Yeah, I'm not that
then
narcissistic.
I will support you in the development of those,
I'm not that narcissistic. I don't want a snack named after me.
Well, you know, it just happened, I'm
How
afraid.
about this, right?
Yeah.
How about this? Well, it didn't just happen. I actually engineered it for you. Who do you think said this? Attacking the rich is not envy. It is self-defence. The hoarding of wealth is the cause of poverty.
Yes.
The rich aren't just indifferent to poverty. They create it and maintain it.
Yeah, I know exactly who said that.
Who?
I picked that up today. It was Jodie Foster.
Yes, because I tweeted it out earlier. You must have seen my tweet.
Is that right? Yeah. And of course, her current personal wealth is £100 million.
$100 million.
$100 million,
yes. I'm very pleased you started reading my Twitter feed.
And she started saying what? That hoarding wealth creates poverty.
Apparently hoarding wealth creates poverty.
Well, she better give away about $99 million then, hadn't she?
I would think 99.9 million,
yeah,
surely.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, how about this from David? He says, I went to a comedy night in Brentwood about 4 years ago. John McVicker was one of the turns. It was hardly comedy, it was just a rant.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he does. I mean, he's one of these guys who gave up their former profession, which in his case was criminality, and decided to become a philosopher. Bit like, I suppose, you could accuse Joey Barton of giving up being a footballer.
Can we not stop talking about him?
For being a philosopher.
What's happened to him, by the way? Is he carrying on betting? Is he giving up football? What's going on?
I'm not sure.
I haven't read... I mean, I don't follow him on Twitter because I find him immensely boring. Maybe you'll find something else to do.
Actually, I don't follow him on Twitter either. But you know, I think you've been a bit harsh on the lad. I think he's tried. He's tried to reform himself.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah?
No, he's an odious character. Here's one from Hulk who says, most security companies use pages still for alarm systems and alerts, etc. And Steve says, I'm sure most fire services still use pages for their retaining firefighters.
So I suppose lifeboatmen and those sort of people would have
So
one
I
as
guess
well.
that's why there's still a business for paging.
Well, I can tell you this for sure. When I was on the heart transplant list, I expected to get a pager, and they walked in and said, no, we don't do pages anymore. You've got a mobile phone, haven't you? I said, yeah. I said, that's what we use. We don't use pages anymore. Mobile phones are more reliable, they said, than pages.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose maybe you can reach
Well, you
people...
take your mobile phone with you everywhere, don't you?
Well, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you might say that... I mean, the problem is there's still parts of this country where you don't get a signal.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
maybe.
in my house in Sussex...
Yeah.
And you know this from, difficult conversations we sometimes have.
Yeah.
You know, I can be sitting in the house and the phone doesn't ring, and then about 2 hours later, I'll get a voicemail.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because it's gone straight to voicemail because there's no signal in the house.
Yeah, it can happen.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Can happen.
Charles says, Sayer walks away, this is talking about Leo Sayer, walks away from Big Brother because he refused to wash his pants on TV.
Really? What's that mean?
Well, he refused to wash his pants on television, I suppose.
Well, why?
You know, because he was in a Big Brother house. He didn't want to do something in front of the camera. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't watch Big Brother.
It's fairly innocuous,
It's
isn't it?
your mate that runs that show.
You know, you put it into a soapy bowl of water
Ben
and just wash
Frau.
it. You know?
Top man.
Oh, Ben.
Ben. He's a good friend of ours. It's Talk Sport.
I don't know why I'm doing this.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
That music can mean only one thing. It is, of course, time for Porkyvision, and it is, of course, the best TV review this side of pretty much anywhere you can think of.
Yep.
The Mexican Wall, the Great Wall of China, any wall, the Berlin Wall, perhaps, which is still there.
Yes.
What do you got for us this week, Mr. Parry?
Well, I tell you what, I'm really shocked at a series called Grantchester.
Yes.
Now, Grantchester is a village just outside Cambridge.
Right. Well, in real life.
In real life,
Yeah.
it's a real village. You know, it's like if you called it Halifax or something like that. You know, it's real. And I tell you, who lives there in reality, Lord Archer, the novelist and former jailbird.
That's him.
Which I don't wish to stress
We
upon.
don't want to go into that. No.
So we're not getting into that, you know. And
behind the pipes behind the Victoria Station or whatever.
All that. And Lady Mary, of course, you know. She lives
Fragrant
there.
Mary.
Fragrant Mary.
Yeah.
And this Grantchester thing is all... The plot is ludicrous. It's about a policeman who's played by Jerome Robson.
Yes.
And he's known as Geordie because he's got a Geordie accent. So he's moved down from Newcastle to Grantchester.
Jerome Robson.
What's it? Robson Jerome.
Robson Jerome.
Robson Jerome. That's him. Yeah. And he's so incompetent. I mean, honestly, if I shot you now and Jerome Robson was standing here, he'd go and find 6 detectives to find out, you know, who committed the crime.
Which is very different from the way he is in that terribly, you know, that's Blood on the Wire or something. Is it? What is it called? Wire in the Blood.
Wire in the Blood. I've never seen
very,
that,
very sort of gory and horrible. But he plays a very clever sort of psychiatric analyst.
I see. Yeah. Well, no, in this one, he plays a bungling cop who likes to drink a lot.
Oh yeah.
For some unknown reason, goes into pubs. This is set in the 50s, by the way.
Right.
And he goes to the pubs and he plays blackjack.
All right.
Is it blackjack? No.
Blackjack?
What's that one where you unfold the board and there's things inside it?
Backgammon.
Backgammon. Thank you. Yeah. He plays
backgammon.
He plays backgammon.
I didn't even think that was a game in the 50s.
Well, it was. And at the end of each puzzling case, you know, he says to Sidney, who is the vicar,
yes,
who's graduated from Cambridge University, very clever man.
Okay.
Come on, Sidney. You know.
So he's still a Geordie then?
Whoa, Sidney. Let's go a backgammon and a pint.
He always plays a Geordie.
Yeah, he plays daft Geordies, you know, and all this, unless he's like doing a real geography programme when he's in a boat, you know, driving around in the North Sea and all that kind of stuff. Right. But anyway, So, what's his name? Robson Jerome.
That's him, yeah.
Now, Sidney is played by a very famous actor with ginger hair who was in Happy Valley as a villain and a rapist.
Rapist?
Yeah, and he was in War and Peace.
Was he?
As a soldier.
Okay.
And I've forgotten his name, but you can look it up on your pad while I'm talking.
Look, yeah.
He's a very famous actor, and he plays Sidney in Grantchester.
Okay.
Now, he solves all the cases, right?
Even though he's not the copper.
Yeah, but the thing is, he is a very heavy drinker. When, you know, he's always reaching for the whiskey bottle.
Right.
He smokes incessantly, and he's very fond of women.
Right.
Now, a moral issue has arisen here. I think
not James Norton, is it?
James Norton.
Is that
That's
him?
James Norton,
okay.
yeah.
Right.
Now, I think what's happening here is, I think the writers of Grantchester are literally trying to put over a message about morality in the Church of England.
Right.
Because this guy, Sidney...
Yes.
is simply behaving in the company of women in very appropriate fashion. For instance, his girlfriend is a woman who is married to another man who's already punched Sidney in the face for getting too close to his wife, right?
Is that Kathy Keating?
Well, she's very attractive with dark hair. Let me have a look at this.
Is that her?
Let's
Casey Ainsworth? Yeah. Casey Ainsworth, would that be her?
No, that's not her. No,
okay.
No, she's the wife of somebody else.
All right.
So, but this woman's very attractive. Yeah, dark hair.
Margaret Ward, is that her? Maybe.
No. Now, talking about her, I'll tell you about Margaret Ward in a minute. So what happens is...
Oh, here we go. Amanda Kendall must be her.
It's Amanda Kendall.
Yeah,
that's right. It's Amanda Kendall, right? So Amanda Kendall obviously has lit a candle for Sidney the vicar, who's a highly intelligent guy from Cambridge University who wasted his life by becoming a vicar. I'm sorry I have to say that, but I think if you get a Cambridge degree and then decide that, you know, you're going to devote the rest of your life to the church, I think it's a waste. I think you should become a lay preacher and then get a job in industry. But anyway, the point of the story is he's been pursuing this woman to the extent where her husband's already punched him in the face and injured him.
Can't blame him, really.
Can't blame him at all.
No.
You know, if a vicar was training around after my wife, I'd give him a good kicking as well.
Yeah, well, you'd have to step in, wouldn't you?
I'd go and smash him in the face with a communion wine bottle or something like that, you know, just to, you know, tell him not to push it.
So the Stations of the Cross.
That's right, yeah. So anyway, what happens is... Sidney is constantly in turmoil about his feelings for women, but he's been told by the bishop already, ease off the married women, Sidney. You know, we're the Church of England.
Yeah. Well, he can get married if he's a vicar anyway.
Yeah, of course he can. Yeah, so, you know, so the bishop...
It's not like he has to be celibate, does
Exactly. There's plenty of single women out there, so, you know, why don't you, you know, turn your attention to them, leave the married women alone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgraceful,
It's
isn't
shocking,
it, when you think about it?
Yeah.
So anyway... So I'll put
He's not that old either. He's quite young,
He's not that old. So I'll put that on hold for a minute.
Okay.
Because what's also happening is that Geordie, you know, the thick copper, who couldn't literally solve... Honestly, he wouldn't be able to solve a crime If
I've seen Neil Morrissey's in this show as well.
Neil Morrissey just made an appearance. He's not a regular character. Okay. He was an individual.
Right.
But what happens is Sydney has now decided that Rogerisation with the very attractive Margaret, what was her name, Ward?
Margaret Ward, yes.
Beautiful-looking girl. She's not like the secretary in
She's a bit older, though, isn't she, by the looks of her?
Not really, no. And she plays the role of a sort of the administrator at the police station. So she's not like a secretary. She's not his secretary.
Right.
She's a civilian controller of the police station, but she wears beautiful pencil skirts of the age, 1950s. All the cops are lusting after her. They show...
Does she have seamed stockings?
Yes, that's right. But what they do is, again, I don't know what the makers of Grantchester, what sort of message they're trying to put over, but they show close-up pictures of Margaret Ward's beautifully shaped bottom as she's going up the stairs in the police station, and all the policemen, open-jawed, lusting after her. Yeah.
Blimey.
So anyway...
It's near the knuckle, isn't it?
Anyway, so old Geordie...
A bit like Pippa Middleton.
Yeah, a bit like that.
Yeah.
Old Geordie, Robson Jerome, finally sort of gets in there.
A lot of people are complaining that it's not Robson Jerome, it's Robson Green.
Oh, Robson Green, that's him. Yeah, that's it, yeah. So they're all complaining, right, that Robson... No, they're not complaining. Sorry, Robson Green finally decides to get in there.
Yeah.
So the next shot we see is Robson Green, who is a married man with 3 children.
All right.
One of whom suffered a terribly difficult birth in a previous episode, and he went off on the ale around Cambridge.
Oh, because he was depressed about it.
Yeah, because, I can't face my child dying.
Right.
Well, the child didn't die, and if you'd have been there to help your wife, it would have been...
in those days, you say that, you couldn't do it. You didn't allow husbands anywhere near the childbirth scenario.
Well, no, but after he'd been born, he was very poorly. No. So when Robson Green got home after the birth, and she brought the child home, he said, he's very poorly, I'm not sure he'll survive.
I can't do it, I better go on the lash.
He went off on the lash and started,
Because I remember my dad telling me when I was born, he wasn't allowed into the hospital because it wasn't visiting hours.
Yeah, well...
And my mother had to hold me up to the window.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was standing 2 levels down.
Yeah.
To wave to me.
That was a shock.
Oh, well, I mean, it's astonishing how it's changed. Now if you're not at the birth of your kids, you're thought to be some kind of beast.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. So anyway,
sorry to interrupt you.
So Robson Green's now got in with Margaret Ward, and he's Rogerising her on a regular basis.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, what about, doesn't she have any morals? I mean, she knows he's married.
Well, you'd think so.
That's a shocking scenario.
So anyway, so old Sydney, right?
Not as thick as he looks then, is he, really?
Well, Sydney starts giving him a lecture and saying, you break up your family.
Sorry, I thought Sydney... Oh, Sydney's the priest.
Sydney's the priest,
sorry,
yeah.
So
Sydney, who's very close to the family and all this kind of stuff, So he says, Geordie, you shouldn't be doing this. He says, I know I shouldn't, but, I can't resist her and all that.
Yeah. Well,
you've seen her in those pencil skirts. I'm telling you,
of an excuse,
where I come from, in Geordie land, Bonnie lad and all that, Right. So you've got this married man playing away with the girl at work.
Can you take him seriously if his real name is actually Geordie?
No.
I mean, he's a Geordie. Why is he called Geordie?
Well, because there's no other Geordies in Grantchester in the 1950s, so obviously they call him Geordie.
That's mad,
like if a Scotsman had arrived, they'd call him Jock, wouldn't they? They did in those days, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway... So this is all a very unsavoury situation. Meanwhile, the trainee priest who's come along to work with Sydney is out in the field trying to seduce a woman.
Is there any big crime being solved here?
This is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Trying to seduce this woman, but he's not very good at it because he is virginal. And she's having to sort of steer him through the...
Which one is this? I've got the cast here, so who's
well,
this
he's
DC Phil Young, is that him?
Let's have a look.
The youngish guy, that guy?
No, he's a copper. No, it's the young vicar. It's the second vicar.
Oh, right, okay.
Second vicar who lives in the vicarage.
Right.
Meanwhile...
There we go. Reverend Sam Milburn.
That's not him either, no.
Right.
But at the vicarage, they've got a really draconian woman who looks after them both. You see what I mean?
Oh.
And she's constantly, berating...
Like sort of Mrs. Mop figure.
Yeah, Mrs. Mop, yeah. She's constantly berating James Norton.
Go on. Somebody's just said, are you sure you're not watching reruns of Father Ted?
No. This is serious. And anyway, so old James Norton, constantly being told by the housekeeper woman, your morals are all over the place. You're supposed to be a man of the cloth and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is. But he's always half cut on whiskey and smokes 40 fags a day.
Unbelievable.
Leaning on the bar in the local, pub and all that. But anyway, the last scene of the last episode even shocked me.
Yes.
And I've had a life. I mean,
certainly have.
I've seen things. I've been around the houses.
Yeah.
And what happens is, old Sydney gets a few whiskies down his throat.
Right.
And then for some unknown reason, leaps on his bike and gets around, literally on his bike, and cycles round to the house where the married woman lives.
Right.
Knocks on the door like he's going to knock it down. She opens it.
Is this the married woman in the pencil skirt?
No. She's being romanced by Geordie.
Right.
Yeah, being Rogerised by Geordie. Right. No, this is the very attractive woman, Margaret
the other
Ward.
one. Yeah, I know. I got you, yeah.
No, not Margaret Ward. The very attractive... Amanda
Kendall.
Amanda Kendall.
Okay.
This is Amanda Kendall.
Yeah.
So he's banging on the door. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. She opens the door.
Right.
No... where's the baby? How's the baby? And like that. Rushes in, literally grabs her, starts tearing at her clothes.
Right.
She starts tearing at his cassock.
Right.
Blimey. Turns her over, and it's a good job the cameras went off then, because they were about to indulge in Rogerisation on the stairs.
What about the husband?
Of her house. Well, nobody knows where he is.
Blimey.
Nobody knows where he
Christ
is.
almighty.
And I mean, this has really shocked me. Shocked me so terrible. I mean, this is
terrible.
Yeah, absolutely shocking.
Yeah,
absolutely shocking.
Blimey.
And I fear for the whole moral integrity of this place called Grantchester.
Yeah.
Because everybody's at it.
I'm not surprised.
Everybody's at it.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is this going to go on for the whole summer?
Well, who knows? Yeah. There's more episodes of it to come. But I thought I'd better warn the flock, as I call my followers, and I suppose that's what old Sydney calls his parishioners. About what is going on here.
Absolutely. Stoddard says this sounds positively shocking, Porky.
Yeah.
Get this smut off our screens.
Exactly.
Porkyvision.
Exactly.
It is an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Song that, you have to say. Beagle Sharky.
I thought it was a great song, and it was a classic of the 70s, really, I suppose. But
yeah, was it not a bit later than that, maybe?
80s.
It was after
80s,
the Undertones.
yeah, it was. It was. Yeah,
I interviewed him when he was in the Undertones.
Yeah.
When he was playing the Rainbow, which was theatre up in North London, which is no longer there.
Yes.
Very iconic place up on sort of up in near Islington.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And the great thing about him was that I think it was the case that I interviewed him in his dressing room before they did the show.
Yeah.
And I was a bit green in those days. I was doing it for sort of the Bristol version of Time Out or something rubbish, right?
Yeah.
And I had a tape recorder. Went in and recorded it. Came out and worked out, in fact, that I hadn't recorded any of it.
Recorded anything, no.
And so I had to go back and knock on the door, and I said to...
Can I do it again?
I'm really sorry, but can we do it again? And he said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, really.
He was really nice about it.
Do you know what happened to me once? I interviewed Ralph McTell.
Oh, yeah.
But
Streets of London.
Yeah, but what happened was, it was when I was working in Newcastle on the evening paper there.
Yeah.
And
was he from up there?
No, he was a Londoner.
Was he?
I'm sure he was a Londoner, yeah. But he was doing like a folk night up there, everybody gets all, sort of...
dewy-eyed.
Yeah, that's right, the streets of London and all this, And I was completely blatherated. And I'd gone along...
What, before you interviewed him?
Yes.
Shocking.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I was going to interview him, you see, because this is the story. So I go to... There were regular Friday night, concerts at the Polytechnic.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was a youngish man. I was in my early 20s.
So presumably Friday night for you, you thought you were off on the lash.
Absolutely. Not only on the lash, but there was, it was a woman-rich environment, the Polytechnic, on a Friday night. And I used to get up there, and of course, they were students, and I was like a fledgling great, journalist.
So you
reporter.
had a load more money than they had as well.
Load more money, and I worked for the local paper, the Evening Chronicle. I was always hinting I could make them famous and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I got in there, and it happened to be Ralph McTell, and he did the concert.
So did you have to sort of review the concert?
No, I hadn't. I'd gone there completely socially. Yeah. I didn't have any interest in Ralph McTell. I wasn't there to review him or anything. But then to big myself up in front of a couple of female students, right? I said, I'm going to interview him after the show. And they said, oh, really? I said, yeah, I'm going backstage to interview him.
Yeah.
And,
well, it had a magical phrase, that backstage, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely,
backstage, amazing backstage passes.
That's right, yeah. And, of course, I knew it would work because all I had to do was sort of walk towards one door, flash my press card, because we all had press cards in those days, and say, I'm from the Chronicle, pal, let me through and all that, which they did. Right. That wasn't a problem. Yeah. But then we got into... But you
weren't trying to take one of these women with you?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I took two of them with me.
You took two?
Yeah, two of these young ladies. Yeah,
unbelievable.
And we got into so apparently I spoke to him for 15 minutes, but I can't remember because I was too blatherated. Right. And
it shows you how innocent those days were.
Yes,
because it wouldn't happen now. I mean, you could not go backstage at a show and just go, I'm from the local paper, just let me in. Speak to me now.
That's right. And he was drinking in his dressing room after the show anyway, so I assumed that he was under the influence or so. And he didn't realise how blatherated I was. But what happened was, I must have, to big myself up in front of these women, I said, this will be page 3 in the Evening Chronicle on Monday, fantastic revelations. Yes. And I didn't even know what he was talking about.
And were you pretending to take notes at least?
Well, I was taking notes in shorthand, again, to impress these young ladies. They're saying, oh, what's that? Yeah. And I said, it's shorthand, don't worry. He said, oh, well, how do you know what that means? Right. And I said, well, it's magic. I said, I'll be able to...
but you didn't actually know what shorthand was, did you?
Oh, yeah, I'd passed the
but I thought you cheated in that.
I did cheat in it, but I knew a bit of shorthand. so anyway... what happened was that that was a Friday night, so I didn't remember. I interviewed him.
What happened with these two girls, though, afterwards?
We went off and partied somewhere else. I used to take them to nightclubs in Newcastle and this kind of stuff, Okay. So anyway, I didn't
Nothing sordid to report.
Well, I don't want to get into that. It's a family show. All right. But what I'm saying is I didn't really break out of this cycle of mass drinking and
well, you never have, really, have you?
Seeking Rogerisation until about Sunday morning.
I was going to say until about 2005.
No, till about Sunday morning. And then somebody reminded me, because I must have been boasting about it, that I'd interviewed Ralph McTell on Friday.
Right.
And
so you had to suddenly find the story.
No, I vaguely thought, Ralph McTell Sunday.
Friday.
No, I hadn't bothered ringing up anybody from the news desk. It was the weekend, and there weren't a lot of people around the weekend. So I wasn't bigging myself up to my employers.
Was the Sunday Sun still around in those days?
It was, yeah. I was bigging myself up to, my mates and to these girls.
So you told the whole town, but you actually told the paper.
And it'd be in, page 3 lead in the Chronicle on Monday. So somebody at the office got wind of this, and then said, you understand you've got a story on Ralph McTell? Yeah. And that's how I got to realise I'd interviewed him.
Yes.
I said, what? Ralph McTell?
Yeah.
I said, what do you want to know about Ralph? What would I have to do with Ralph? He said, we interviewed him on Friday night.
Right.
Oh, right. Of course, yeah. And then it came back in my mind.
Right.
So then I reached for my notebook and I saw this completely indecipherable shorthand, complete gibberish. Yeah. I couldn't remember anything he'd said to me. I couldn't interpret any of my shorthand notes.
Yes.
So I then had to, after...
Did you make it up?
No, it was better than that. After falling out with one of the young ladies, after a sort of 24-hour bender, I had to then go and track her down. She lived in a flat in a place called Jesmond.
Right.
And I said, you were there, weren't you? And she said, yes. And I said...
But did she want to see you after you'd fallen?
Well, I made out I'd gone to apologise and all this kind of stuff, And I said, and by the way...
So you just used her, in other words?
I had to. And,
shockingly.
And then she was lucky enough, she remembered a load of what Ralph McTell had told me, because she wasn't as laddered as I was,
But was any of any interest?
Yeah, well, no, it didn't matter then, because then I made the rest up. I just had to establish that I was talking to him.
It's a wonder you never won the Pulitzer Prize, really, isn't it? Yeah. It's extraordinary that somehow that never was honour was never bestowed upon you.
That's right. Then, so I said, so we were there. She said, and I was talking to me, and I said, he talked about his music and all that. And then I made up some story about, because these guys will never, as long as you're bigging them up, they never ring up and say that's not true.
No,
and
I suppose not. Well, I suppose it depends how far you go.
Yeah, I picked up some story to say, literally, that he was hoping to do a duo with Paul McCartney. Right. I don't know why. Yeah. I chose Paul McCartney, but, but I worded it very cleverly, so it looked like it had come from his end and not Paul McCartney's end. I thought Paul McCartney might sue me for this,
Yes, he could do.
But Ralph McTell wouldn't. And also, I realised that Ralph McTell had gone back to London, and in those days, there wasn't a great deal of cross-communication between London and Newcastle.
No, you'd have to physically get your hands on the paper, wouldn't
you? Exactly. And somehow got away with it, But that was where when I was developing the art of rat-like cunning. You know?
Yes, I can see absolutely. As I say, incredible that you never ever got the Pulitzer Prize. Mojo Man says this show needs an X certificate. Dildos, prostitutes, rapists, acid, Rogerising in a cat.
No, it's true,
etc.
It's absolutely true.
Incredible.
But I mean, I'm afraid that's just life as it goes round, isn't it?
Now, talking about life as it goes round, one of your favourite people in the world, David Beckham, is in the papers this morning.
He's getting slated.
Do you know why? Because he apparently stars in the new King Arthur film, which is called Legend of the Sword.
I've seen a clip of him standing there with his in his knight's uniform with a big sword.
Well, one of the things that he apparently does is he stands around wearing a black suit of armour, a fake nose, and some gruesome makeup. I think we've all seen that picture. Yeah. But apparently, he's very much upstaged by all sorts of other people. It's a Guy Ritchie movie, but last night was the premiere. And a woman called Poppy Delavigne, who's one of the big models of this time, turned up pretty much half naked and stole the show. But he's there with his oldest son, Brooklyn, who looks completely and utterly unlike him, I would say, at the age of 18.
Yeah, but I think Brooklyn was accompanying Miss Delavigne, wasn't he?
I don't know.
I think so.
What, you mean he's her boyfriend?
Well, I think there's some suggestion that there might have been a friendship. I haven't got that wrong. But I mean, Brooklyn's now
he's
sort
18.
of playboy, isn't he?
Well, she's 31, so he's a bit young for her, isn't he?
No. When you think about old 1D Harry, I mean, he romances ladies of that sort of age, doesn't he?
No, he's a bit older than that, though.
Yeah. Listen, you were telling me a few minutes ago about old Noel Edmonds, the man I used to impersonate in nightclubs in Chester.
Yes.
And what is he claiming?
You didn't impersonate him. You said you were his brother.
That's right, I did, yeah.
Well, he's apparently suing one of the banks, asking for 73 million quid.
What for?
He says he's compensation over fraud by HBOS, right? In a letter to Lloyd's chief executive, lawyers for him say that he suffered immense economic loss as well as, to put it very mildly, distress and inconvenience at the hands of the bank as a direct result of the actions of individuals involved in fraud at the Berkshire branch.
What on earth is he alleging, though?
He's apparently saying 6 people were jailed in February after a jury was told how they spent the proceeds of their fraudulent activities on super yachts and sex parties while destroying businesses they had lent money to. Among them was the former HBOS banker Mark Dobson, who was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. La. Apparently, these individuals were fraudsters, and he's claiming that basically they affected some of the monies that he should have had, and he wants compensation.
So is he saying that he applied for a loan, he didn't get it, but the people who made the decisions then went and fraudulently spent the money on sex parties and yachts?
He says the biggest part of the claim is £50 million to cover the losses he incurred in his business, something called Unique Group, collapsed. He says, Edmonds says the banker's actions destroyed the entertainment firm and robbed him of future growth. I don't know how, but it's a lot of money.
Well, Noel Edmonds, with the greatest of respect to him, because he has been very successful in his life, has made some bizarre statements over the last few years and come up with some bizarre theories.
He certainly has.
About people who can cure themselves of cancer and weird sort of theories about the way the world works and all that kind of stuff. Very odd.
Very strange. We're going to have to develop this one tomorrow because we're out of time. This is TalkSport.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics. We have decided to take them a free copy of our last live show, haven't we, this time?
Have we?
Yes, we have.
I didn't know we
we have. Going to sign
it. Is that wise?
Yeah, it's very wise. Okay. Yeah. And so, in order to...
You've got one, by the way.
I've got one.
Have you?
Yeah. I'll find. I'll get one. I'll get one from our distributors. I'm going to our distributors tomorrow. Crikey,
you stopped me in your chair.
Yes, no, it just collapsed. Sorry about that.
Somebody shot you.
Yeah, it did. It was like somebody shot me. Sorry, I'll tell you what happened. The back suddenly sprung up and hit me in the back. It's quite a shock.
Quite worrying,
quite a shock.
Don't phone your mother. Phone Talk Sport.
Football on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Athletico Radio.
Talk Sport.
Richard says this, any chance of a shout-out, please, for my lad, Dan, who is 7 on Thursday. He loves the podcast, especially Postman Pork.
Okay.
He says he's even referring to his present opening as Postman Dan.
Postman Dan?
Yeah.
Okay.